The rise of the Primarch. The 13th Black Crusade's full fury battered the Cadian Gate, its outlying worlds crumbling under orbital barrages and internal betrayals. Hope waned with each passing day. Yet Cadia's defenders, led by Lord Castellan Creed, stood resolute, their defiance a bulwark against an unprecedented threat. Heroes of the Imperium rallied, Black Templars under Marshal Amalric. Imperial Fists, led by Captain Garradon, with the Starford Phalanx, and Saint Celestine, whose miracles kindled faith in the weary. Inquisitor Greyfax, freed from Trazyn the Infinite's captivity, lent her unyielding will. Yet, Archmagus Dominus Belisarius' call saw beyond mere arms. Guided by the Harlequin, Selendra Veilwalker, to unlock the Black Pylon's secrets. He realized Abaddon's crusades had systematically destroyed these structures, weakening reality's fabric, to widen the Eye of Terror from one side of the galaxy to another. En route to fulfill an ancient pact with Ultramar's Lord, Call aimed to reverse this devastation. But Cadia fell, its pylons shattered, and the Great Eye spread forth, a warp rift like none had ever seen. The survivors, naming themselves the Celestinian Crusade after their radiant saint, fled with Call's auto-reliquary, bearing a mysterious artifact, their last hope, pursued by Abaddon's relentless forces. Simultaneously, a cosmic upheaval shook the Eldar. Yniad, the god of the dead, awoke in the ether, choosing gladiatrix Yvraine as his prophet in Comora's Crucible arena. Beset by her kin and Slaaneish's demons, Yvraine, aided by the enigmatic Visage, reached Craftworld Bael'Tarn, triggering its shattering rebirth and summoning the Incarn, Yniad's avatar. The Ynnari, as they became known, split the Eldar. Some embraced their salvation through death and rebirth. Others decried it as a perilous hubris. Undeterred, Yvraine sought the Crone Swords, forging a desperate plan to stem Chaos's tide. Her quest led through the webway to Clysis, where her Eldar host emerged to save the Celestinian Crusade from the Black Legion. Forging an alliance, they vowed to guide the Imperials to Ultramar. As warp storms raged, the united pilgrims hastened through the webway, clutching a fragile hope to defy the galaxy's unravelling. Chapter 1. The Fires of Laphis. High in the Atheron Mountains, otherworldly energy swirled, stirring dust and ash across a corpse-littered plateau. Subtly, at first, these currents gained momentum, tugging at flames, licking from shattered battle tanks and twisting, billowing smoke into languid vortices. Amid the carnage, a handful of Black Legion Chaos Space Marines stood among mounds of fallen Ultramar Defense Auxilia, their own dead scattered sparingly. Clad in brutal armour, they scanned hand-held scrying devices, spiked bolt guns panning the cobalt sky and rugged peaks beyond. Harsh challenges barked through fanged vox grills, sensors sweeping for the unseen source of the etheric surge. Abruptly, the energies erupted, hurling traitors off their feet. Power coalesced into a towering, elegant structure, its curved form shimmering as if it had stood for millennia. From its heart, a hail of firepower erupted. Monomolecular discs slicing through armour, shattering eye lenses, spraying dark blood across sun-bleached stone. Severed limbs in black ceramite clattered, as the Black Legionaries reeled under the sudden onslaught. Yevrain and the Visage led a diminished Ynnari Celestinian force from the webway portal, their numbers culled for discretion in Ultramar. Eldrad Ulthran and Autarch Millennial had diverted most warriors to other missions, leaving a lean but lethal host. Empowered by enemy deaths, Yevrain and the Visage moved with breathtaking speed, weaving through roaring bolt shells. The Visage slid beneath a thumping volley, driving his blade through a traitor's breastplate, ceramites splitting like parchment. Yevrain leapt over a hail of shots, planting one foot on a Black Legionary's bolter, vaulting over him and sweeping Kavar in a flashing arc. Her victim's helm parted from his neck, his form crumbling to glowing dust. Dire Avengers and clave-wielding incubi charged alongside bellowing Black Templars, their mutual hatred suppressed for now. Marshal Amalric and Inquisitor Greyfax stormed forth, blades shedding heretic blood. Saint Celestine soared above, her Gemini Superior leaping with blazing bolt pistols, followed by the Sisters of Our Martyred Lady, their guns spitting fire. Belisarius Cole skittered on mechanical legs, his auto reliquary trundling behind, guarded by Skitari, battle servitors, and 2 towering House Tyrannus knights. The Black Legion, disciplined despite their scant numbers, met the surprise assault without panic. Mass reactive bolts obliterated a few Skitari, and 2 incubi fell, bludgeoned in close combat. Yet the Ynnari and Celestinians, their blades flashing with lethal precision, cut down most traitors swiftly. The survivors retreated in order, aiming to report to their masters, but the knights' Gatling cannons and armour-piercing missiles unleashed a howling firestorm, reducing them to bloody tatters. The battle ended abruptly, leaving the victors amidst smoking corpses, their weapons hot. Terse orders sent warriors to form a bristling perimeter around the portal, Eldar and human, maintaining weary gaps in their lines. Beneath Laphas's harsh blue sky, the leaders gathered, hot winds carrying distant gunfire and explosions. "Macragge is invaded," Greyfax said downly. "This is grave news," Cole said, but then corrected her. "You are labouring under a misapprehension. According to my internal gyro catalogue, we do not stand upon the surface of Macragge. We are located 160 million miles spinward of our intended destination, allowing for variable positioning and empiric distort." Greyfax rounded on Yvraine, demanding, "Then where are we?" Yvraine, her voice cold as the grave, replied, "Would you have been gladdened, Monkai, to find that my people kept a hidden way upon the surface of one of your most prized worlds? I think not." Amalric growled, "No, we would not." Celestine agreed. "Such knowledge would have unsettled us, but it would perhaps have eased our road. Where, then, do we stand? And how shall we proceed along our appointed path?" Yvraine, her Gyrinx growling, said, "This is the world that your species calls Laphis, in the star system of Macragge. In order to proceed, we need only locate representatives of the Ultramarines present upon this world." Eleanor, a Gemini Superior, and prodded, "And what if they are disinclined to lend us their assistance? We walk with Xenos at our side and come uninvited to their world. Are they not as like to shoot us as to offer welcome?" Yvraine dismissed her. "This is your concern, not ours. These are your Emperor's finest warriors, are they not? Surely they have the mental discipline to discern friend from foe." Amalric rumbled, They have the mental discipline to remain weary of Xenos trickery, and to suspect those who traffic with such creatures."
Celestine interjected. "We pilgrims will convince them that our cause is holy and just, and that our alliance is an honest one, but not by standing here and arguing. We must move at once, for darkness draws close and time grows short."
Vox channels buzzed with Ultramar's desperate war. Black Legion, Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors and Emperor's children clashing with Ultramar's finest, Defense Auxilia, and starships. Smoke shrouded the horizon, contrails crisscrossing the sky, as Ultramar fought for survival. Chapter 2. The Path of the Righteous. Human and Eldar descended the Athron Mountains. From the corpse-strewn plateau, a broad, packed earth roadway wound down the mountainside, wide enough for Baneblades to pass abreast, flanked by ancient stone supports. Atop these stood somber statues of robed space marines, their oversized features gazing solemnly, lit braziers in their hands trailing incense, with devotional offerings and prayer papers heaped at their feet. The pilgrims, Celestinians and Yennari alike, kept weapons at the ready. Eyes scanned the horizon as they threaded past wrecked tanks and fresh corpses of Ultramar Defense Auxilia and treacherous cultists. No living foes appeared. The road eerily silent, save for the wind's sigh, the crunch of footfalls, and distant battles rumble. Archmage's call, his Vox thieves and Cartographia inloads precise, assured them they neared an urban centre under the Ultramarines' protection. The allies spoke little, attuned to Laphis's thin air carrying war's echoes. Rounding a sun-scorched peak, they faced a ferrocrete bastion embedded in the mountainside. The heraldry of Ultramar embossed proudly. Twin Icarus arrays atop its battlements hammered fire at swooping Helldrake demon engines, their draconic forms diving to spew bale flame before soaring away with chilling roars. One Helldrake veered toward the pilgrims, prompting Marshal Amarek's shout, "Spread out and run for the bastion!" House Tyrannus Knights surged ahead, their loping strides shaking the earth, guns swiveling skyward. One of the knights unleashed their fury. Their Gatling cannon and heavy stubbers tore a wing from a Helldrake, sending it crashing in a fiery detonation. Another was blasted apart mid-attack, while the third fled, dwindling to a speck in Laphis's hard blue sky. The knights halted, weapons cooling as the pilgrims caught up. The bastion's armoured portal hissed, pressure locks disengaging, revealing 3 Ultramarines, with bolters raised. Their leader's Vox-amplified voice barked, "Who are you? And where do you hail from? And why do you travel with Xenos?" Tense, but disciplined, the exchange avoided violence. The presence of Inquisitor Greyfax and Saint Celestine counterbalanced the Yennari. Celestine declared, "Our mission is a divine pilgrimage, ordained by the Emperor himself. Archmage's call, and his auto-reliquary must reach the Lord of Ultramar with all haste." Smiling, knowingly, she welcomed the news of inbound storm ravens, originally summoned to counter Helldrakes, but now able to ferry their leaders to the strike cruiser Sword of Honour, and bound for Macragge. The Ultramarines confirmed the Lord of Ultramar had returned to the Fortress of Hera days prior, promising safe passage. The pilgrims split. All Yennari, except Yvraine and the Visage, returned to the webway portal to spread Yniad's word, while Celestine assigned the Sisters of our Martyred Lady and House Tyrannus Knights to aid Laphis's defence. The Storm Ravens, bearing Greyfax, Amalric, a few Black Templars, Celestine, her Gemini Superior, Call, his Cataphron Servitors, and Scutari, docked with the Sword of Honour. Confined under heavy guard to Spartan steel chambers, watched over by chapter helots with naval shotguns, the allies bristled, especially the Ynnari and Amalric, but Celestine's firm words of faith quelled dissent. Days dragged on, marked by the ship's engine rumble and sluggish artificial gravity. The Visage sparred relentlessly, even with Amalric, while Call purged Greyfax's mind-shackled scarabs, a painful process she endured with iron resolve, her suspicion of Celestine unwavering. "I've seen her battle heretics, predict the unpredictable, and her faith's light repel the wicked," Greyfax admitted privately. Yet as an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor she added, "True miracles are rare. What seems divine may hide chaos's taint." Her vigil persisted, alert for duplicity. Unnoticed, Yvraine drew Call to a recessed cargo bay, housing his auto-reliquary. Under the Cataphron Servitor's blank gazes, she spoke urgently, her words a cold mist. "You know what lies within your relic, Archmagus. Its awakening is our shared purpose, a bulwark against the dark gods." Call's lenses whirred, skeptical. "You speak of truths I've guarded for millennia, Xenos. Why should I trust your kind?" Yvraine pressed. "Because Yniad's will aligns with your Emperor's. Deny chaos or all is lost." After a long pause, Call nodded curtly, ending the clandestine meeting. Yvraine swept away, leaving Call to ponder their pact, as the Sword of Honour bore them toward Macragge. Chapter 3. Macragge. After days of perilous transit through real space, the Sword of Honour pierced Macragge's orbital envelope, its steel corridors shuddering under the relentless salvo of gun batteries and the punishing impacts against its void shields. The Celestinian Crusade and their Ynnari allies, hurried by stern Ultramarines escorts, navigated the trembling ship to board the Storm Raven gunships. Through the embarkation deck's shimmering shields, they glimpsed a ferocious void battle raging above Macragge. A Chaos Armada, their vessels emblazoned with the sigils of the Black Legion, the Iron Warriors, the Purge, the Night Lords, and the Alpha Legion, clashed with the Ultramar Defense Fleet. Lumbering battleships and blade-swift escorts traded searing lance beams and volleys of torpedoes, their fury aimed below, at the fortress of Hera, a titanic bastion sprawling across Magna Macragge Civitas, the capital of the Ultramarines' chapter planet. The Storm Raven pilots, their voices resolute over the Vox, swore to deliver their charges safely to Marnius Calgar, who awaited them below, though his flat-toned communiques hinted at preoccupation with the escalating siege. With a scream of thrusters, the Storm Ravens launched into the fire-streaked void. Macragge turning below, a vast orb of blue oceans, white clouds, green plains, and grey peaks. The void was a maelstrom of destruction. Lance beams stabbed through the darkness. Broken warships tumbled, their wreckage scattering molten metal and liquid globules. Stormhawk interceptors weaved through flak blizzards, executing daring attack runs against Chaos cruisers. Swarms of Dreadclaw drop pods and armoured attack craft arced toward invasion trajectories, glinting like malevolent stars. Escorted by Stormhawks, The gunships dove through Macragge's atmosphere, their hulls wreathed in re-entry flames, shaking violently as they pierced the planet's turbulent embrace. Through external pictometers, the pilgrims watched flames give way to a dizzying vista of towering mountains, their peaks framing the fortress of Hera's sprawling cityscape. Flak batteries and missile silos lit the expanse with muzzle flares, countering waves of Helldrakes and traitor fighters that strafed the defenders, dumping ordnance on colonnaded templums and towering habstacks. Ultramarines returned fire shredded dozens of Chaos craft, some heretics deliberately crashing into gun towers, their suicidal dives claiming warriors and fortifications alike. The Storm Ravens hurtled through this chaos, dodging renegade drop pods that thundered past like meteors, nearly shredding one gunship. A pack of Helldrakes, wings tucked in, pursued with predatory intent, their metallic roars echoing through the skies. The escorting Stormhawks peeled off, engaging the draconic machines in a storm of cannon fire, allowing the gunships to plunge through the Ultramarines' anti-aircraft barrage. Only the pilot's superhuman reflexes navigated the gauntlet of flak and falling debris, the pilgrims clinging to restraining straps as the craft shuddered violently. With a final graceful arc, the Storm Ravens decelerated, landing in an armoured hangar within the fortress's heart. Emerging from the scorched gunships, the pilgrims entered a hive of martial fervour. Chapter serfs manned thumping anti-aircraft cannons in gyroscopic cages, tracking targets across the sky. Bulky servitors hauled ammunition carts, while tech marines administered binaric baptisms to storm talons and storm ravens, their servo arms whining amid sparks of welding braziers. The hangar was a microcosm of the fortress city's defiance. Veteran Sergeant Cassian strode through the bustle, his blood-spattered serfs wielding gilded autoguns behind him. Announcing himself, he welcomed the Celestinians, nodding respectfully to Marshal Amalek, before leading them briskly up a granite ramp into the fortress's labyrinthine corridors. They passed grand chambers of martial statuary, gilt-ornamented walkways hung with Ultramarines' banners, and void-shielded courtyards where Battle Brothers fired bolt guns from fire steps. Explosions rocked the walls, dust falling like snow, electro-sconces flickering under the siege's relentless thunder. Crossing an armour-glass-shielded sky bridge, the pilgrims beheld the fortress's sprawling defences. Terminators strode the battlements, their bolters driving back jump-pack-equipped traitors. Anti-aircraft tanks in ornamental gardens launched missiles, blasting Chaos assault craft from the sky. And in the distance, a traitor Titan, framed by a breached curtain wall, fired guns like poisoned stars, its void shields bursting under Ultramarines' counterfire. Hastened by Cassian, they ascended a statue-lined stairway of marble and brushed steel, passing battle-scarred Ultramarines, jogging toward the front. The stairway opened into a broad, circular strategium, its transposteel walls and ceiling revealing the fiery twilight beyond. A massive console bank, alive with holomaps and chattering servitors, projected a real-time cyclone of data, runes swarming to depict the fortress's beleaguered state. Marnius Calgar, as well as First Captain Agaman, Chief Librarian Tigerius, and Grey Knight Grand Master Voldus stood before the Holonif, their gazes shifting to the pilgrims. Cassian announced each of them: Celestine, Greyfax, Amalek, Kor, Yvrain, and the Visage. Amalek and his Black Templars dropped to one knee, and Greyfax, Celestine, and her Gemini superior bowed deeply. Kor and the Yanari stood to the fore, unmoved, the auto-reliquary humming ominously behind. Calgar's voice cut through the strategium's din. I have no notion of who Belisarius' call might be, nor have I made any pact with a priest of Mars. Shock rippled. Greyfax barking, "Explain yourself, Magus!" Call's flat response stunned them. "I have not come to see Marneus Calgar. I have travelled across the galaxy to attend the Lord of Ultramar, and I demand to be taken to him at once. The auto-reliquary must be delivered to the shrine of Primarch Guilliman." Outrage erupted. Calgar's face thunderous. Scribe's autoquills scratching frantically. Agaman's vox-amplified roar demanded, "Silence! We stand in the fortress of Hera! Show respect!" He urged confinement and the Yanari's destruction, distrusting Call's device. Celestine countered, "This is the Emperor's divine mission." Facing Honor Guard bolters and Greyfax's condemner stake launcher, her Puritan suspicions reignited. Tigurius' resonant voice intervened. "My eyes saw iron birds from a crimson orb, clutching a blazing sword, soaring through fire and shadow toward Ultramar, a giant maw threatening to crush them. These pilgrims fulfill that vision, the Emperor's will." Calgar nodded, permitting the Celestinians to speak. Greyfax, Amorek, and Celestine recounted Cadius' fall, Yvraine offering sparse details of the Yanari's role, while Cole said nothing on the auto-reliquary's contents. Absorbing troop deployments, enemy drop sites, and ammunition counts, Calgar declared, "We live in unusual days. Chaos treads Macragge, aided by their gods. I will not ignore my librarian's visions, or the saint's wisdom." He allowed the auto-reliquary delivery to Guilliman's shrine under heavy guard, permitting the Yanari to join, sensing the Emperor's hand in all this. Agaman accepted this stoically, Celestine praising Calgar's sagacity. Yvraine's features remained unreadable. Call visibly impatient. Tigurius, Voldus, Honor Guard, 3rd Company Brothers, and 1st Company Terminators escorted the pilgrims. Greyfax and Amorek trailing with weapons drawn. As Macragge's sun sank behind Hera's Crown Mountains, heretics intensified their assault. The battle's fate hanging in the balance as the pilgrims marched toward the shrine of Guilliman. Grand Master Voldus. Once a stalwart among the Grey Knight's 3rd Brotherhood, Grandmaster Voldus rose to leadership amid whispers of a cursed mantle. The fortress world of Long Hallow, scarred by a demonic incursion, had claimed his predecessor, Grandmaster Dorium Narafin, in his 4th mission. Leading a strike to secure sacred relics within Tolin's Rocks Cathedral, Narafin and his brothers faced a tide of Zentian demons. The vaults rang with the clash of sanctified blades against fire-spewing abominations. Narantham, fighting beside the psychically gifted brother Aldrich Voldus, drew the attention of Mikashin, a Lord of Change. Guided by an ensorcelled orb's foresight, the demon lured Narafim into a trap, slaying him with cruel precision. Voldus, witnessing his master's fall, unleashed a psychic tempest, its purity a beacon that summoned Supreme Grandmaster Kaldor Drago from the warp. Together their combined might banished Mikashin, forging an unbreakable bond. Drago named Voldus Grand Master, praising his heroism, though the humble warrior, doubting his worth, vowed to honour the Emperor in every battle, his prayers a shield against the taint of chaos. Chapter 4. The Resurrection of Guilliman. Before the Great Crusade reshaped the galaxy, the Emperor, wielding genetic sorcery and his own divine essence, forged 20 Primarchs, demigod sons embodying humanity's finest traits, as well as less fine ones. They were refined through science and magnified by divinity. These warriors, strategists and leaders were destined to command the Space Marine legions, leading them to unimaginable glory. Yet chaos intervened, scattering the nascent Primarchs through the warp to distant worlds. Some whisper the Dark Gods tainted half, sowing seeds of betrayal that bloomed during the Horus Heresy. Roboute Guilliman, however, emerged untainted, landing on Macragge, a feudal world of rugged nobility. Adopted by the warlord Connor, Guilliman matured at a superhuman pace, surpassing all in martial prowess, strategy and statesmanship. When Connor fell to treachery, Guilliman avenged him, unifying Macragge into a beacon of peace, wisdom and strength, a testament to his charisma and logistical genius, capable of transforming wild theories into ordered reality. When the Emperor's forces reached Macragge, Guilliman reunited with his true father, taking command of the Ultramarines Legion. Under his leadership they became exemplars of Space Marine ideals, their strategic brilliance and tactical balance unmatched. Operating on theoretical scenarios and practical solutions, Guilliman's armies fought like a perfectly calibrated machine, outmaneuvering foes with ruthless efficiency, driving humanity's enemies before them. During the Horus Heresy, Guilliman's loyalty to the Imperium burned fierce. Believing the Emperor fallen, he established Ultramar as a bastion of secular purity. Learning terror endured, he strove to join the final stand against Horus, though he arrived too late, a regret that haunted him for decades. Post-heresy, Guilliman authored the Codex Astartes, restructuring the legions, and as Lord Commander among the High Lords, wielded the Emperor's burning blade. At Thessala, his brother Fulgrim's poisoned blade struck him down, and the dying Primarch was enshrined in stasis within the Temple of Correction, awaiting one who could restore his life. That day was now. Stepping into the shrine of Roboute Guilliman was like crossing into a warrior's solemn afterlife. The vast sepulchre, grand enough for a warlord titan to stride unhindered, soared with marble columns, supporting a ceiling of stained armour-glass and obsidian, inlaid with feldrite moon silver that glimmered faintly. Friezes and statues depicting Guilliman's heroic deeds line the chamber, illuminated by flickering electro sconces, lending the scene a profound gravitas. Great braziers burned with devotional incense, their subtle scents weaving through the air, while cherub-visaged loud hailers murmured martial arias and reverent prayers. At the shrine's heart, bathed in stark white light, sat Roboute Guilliman upon a throne of marble, gold and adamantium. Enfolded in a rippling stasis field, fed by thrumming esoteric machineries, the Primarch appeared in repose, eyes closed, his blood glinting like jewels in a delicate necklace at his throat. Clad in battle-scarred armour from his duel with Fulgrim, he held the Emperor's grand sword across his knees, its presence a silent thunder. The pilgrims approached in reverent silence, flanked by their Ultramarines' escort, Call's auto-reliquary trundling behind. Halting at the throne's steps, where countless Ultramarines had knelt over the millennia, Marneus Calgar stepped forward, bowing deeply before turning to face the group. Muffled battle sounds, explosions and gunfire permeated even this sacred space, a reminder of the siege raging beyond. Calgar, his patience worn thin by the fortress's defence, demanded, "State your business here, Belisarius Call." The Archmagus inclined his cowled head, his voice a binaric rasp. "Before his wounding, the Primarch summoned me. My memgrams are eroded, but I believe Guilliman saw in me potential for great works. He charged me with a task, its nature veiled, promising knowledge only a Primarch could bestow." Forestalling Calgar's anger, Cole continued, "My labour has two parts. I bring the first, a suit of armour for the Primarch, its systems capable of healing his wounds." Stunned silence followed.
the Imperials awestruck at the prospect of restoring a living Primarch to the Imperium's darkest hour. Yvrane's voice cut through, cold and precise. I am the emissary of Yniad, god of the dead. My powers are vital to this miracle. Sensing confusion amongst the Monkai, she snapped. Such a feat demands sacrifice. Call's armour alone is insufficient. Guilliman must die to live again.
Fury erupted. Calgar roared. No Xenos witch will touch the Primarch while I draw breath.
Grandmaster Voldus, Greyfax and Amoric aligned with him. Ultramarines raised bolt guns at Call, Yvrane and the Visage, and the Auto Reliquary. Call protested. I am bound by Guilliman's pact, Celestine implored. Have faith. This is the Emperor's will. Togorius, his staff ringing, joined Call, his voice calm and piercing through the clamour. I saw this in my visions, Lord Calgar. Trust my counsel. As tensions peaked, the chamber bristled with impending violence. The Pilgrim's fate and Guilliman's hanging in the balance. Amid the storm of furious voices and raised weapons in the shrine of Guilliman, Marneus Calgar's vox chimed urgently. His rebuke died as he roared a warning. A split second before the shrine's stained armour-glass ceiling shattered inward. Crystal shards, large as storm shields, rained down, embedding in marble walls and armoured bodies. A blue-hulled Ultramarines Thunderhawk, flames pouring from its torn hull, plummeted at mag-train speed, skidding across the shrine's floor, smashing through a marble column in a thunderous cascade. It demolished a statue of Guilliman battling Alfarius before slamming into the far wall with a deafening clang. Listing onto its side, its assault ramp doors opened, disgorging Black Legion Raptors in twisted black and gold armour, spiked jump packs screaming, their war cries echoing through vox grills. The Ultramarines responded with lethal precision. Bolters and assault cannons roaring, shredding raptors in bursts of blood and ceramite. Yet 3 raptors jetted through the fusillade, planting spiked icons adorned with gore-soaked trophies into the floor. Empiric energy swirled, tearing reality with teleportation flares, summoning dozens of Black Legion Terminators in spiked, tactical dreadnought armour. The Ultramarines shifted fire, bolts and plasma ringing off the Terminator's demon-blessed armour, felling some, but not halting their grinding advance. Calgar, aghast at the shrine's desecration, recalled Voldus's vision of a blade-wrought doom. Ordering the pilgrims to stand down, he activated the gauntlets of Ultramar's energy fields and charged, joined by Celestine, her ardent blade drawn, and Amoric, bellowing oaths with his Black Templars. Grandmaster Voldus, storm bolter blazing, called for Grey Knight reinforcements, meeting the Terminators in a brutal clash of metal and blood. Heroism and sacrifice unfolded across the shrine. Inquisitor Greyfax, a bolt shell denting her armour, dropped behind a marble pew near Guilliman's throne, gasping but firing her Condemner bolt gun, blasting a raptor's helm apart. Her bionic eyes cycled through scrying filters, assessing threats. Celestine carved through Terminators, her wounded Gemini superior sprawling in blood, the other firing desperately. Calgar and Voldus fought back to back, the Grey Knight's psychic shockwave hurling a Terminator into a statue. Fresh teleport flares brought Black Legion sorcerers and flesh-metal monstrosities, while Dreadclaw drop pods crashed through the shattered dome, unleashing Khorne berserkers. The shrine trembled, pillars splintering, marble chunks crushing warriors, as a sorcerer's chant threatened to collapse the structure onto Guilliman's throne. Togorius countered the sorcerer's spell, but berserkers overwhelmed him, chain axes roaring. Yvrane and the Visage intervened, their blades a blur, felling berserkers with preternatural grace, empowered by stolen life energies. Greyfax, spotting Call at his auto reliquary, mechadendrites dancing across controls, cursed his inaction. As she rose to confront him, autocannon fire pinned her, a shrapnel bursting around her pew. Calgar,
smashing his power fist into the face of a Terminator. Glimpsed from the corner of his eye, the Ynnari moving towards Guilliman's throne. Just as Cole's device unfurled like a carnivorous flower, enveloping Guilliman. He roared, "No! I command you to stop!" But Tacurius, fending off Khorne berserkers, shouted, "Do it!" Yvrane's blade severed stasis field cables, a rattling sigh echoing from within. Calgar, despair blazing, turned his fury on the traitors. The Black Legion intensified their assault, Terminators surrounding Calgar, their power moles cracking his armour. Raptors charged the throne, met by Ultramarines veterans who fell to obliterate his plasma and las cannon fire. Greyfax's stake wounded a sorcerer, but he pressed on, shaking the shrine with his chants. Celestine, one arm broken, sang hymns, cutting down foes, her last Gemini superior falling in the melee. Amalric and his sword brethren fought atop a mound of corpses, undaunted. Grey Knight paladins began to materialise around Grandmaster Vuldus. 10 Dreadclaw drop pods, shielded by sacrificial Helldrakes, crashed through the dome, unleashing the talons of the Despoiler. 100 veteran heretic Astartes. Their overwhelming fire felled Ultramarines and Terminators. Calgar was buried under foes. Amalric was charging to his doom, and Celestine, bloodied but defiant, faced certain death as the shrine's defenders dwindled, their final moments measured in heartbeats. As Black Legionaries closed within yards of Rebute Guilliman's throne, the rune panels on Belisarius Cole's auto-reliquary flicked from red to green, the clear chime slicing through the shrine's cacophony like a blade. Cole, fighting alongside Yvrane, the Visarch, and Chief Librarian Tigurius, emitted a triumphant binaric blurt. The auto-reliquary's armatures hissed open, revealing a vision of awe. Rebute Guilliman, no longer a stasis-locked revenant, stood reborn, his presence a thunderhead of divine might. Clad in a magnificent Martian-forged armour, its ornate plates gleaming, he wielded the Emperor's sword, its blade ablaze with leaping flames. His eyes burned with murderous intensity, cowing even the traitors. The shrine fell silent, the din of external war muffled as friend and foe gazed upon the reborn Primarch. A lone Khorne berserker's cry shattered the spell, charging in a reckless leap. Guilliman's blade arced, bisecting the heretic mid-air, his halves crashing to the floor. The Black Legion surged with a howl of hate, but Guilliman strode to meet them, his wrath incarnate. His hand of dominion, unleashing a storm of armour-piercing fire, shredding the sorcerer, shaking the temple's roots. Berserkers flung themselves at him, only to be smashed into armoured meat sacks. Their charge broken by his terrifying speed. Bolts exploded against his inviolable armour as he crashed into their ranks, his roar of fury shaking the shrine. His first blow hurled a Black Legionnaire skyward, blood trailing like a comet. His second drove a Terminator through a bronze and marble column, the traitor's body shattered within. A spiked power fist, aimed for his chest, was severed, its wielder's head cauterized in a single return stroke. Guilliman moved with unmatched speed, his strength defying the heretic's superhuman reflexes. Their rare hits turned aside by his masterwork armour. Saint Celestine gazed upon the Primarch and felt her faith vindicated, whispering, "Thank you, my Emperor. He is a blessing we do not deserve." A Black Legionnaire lunged with a serrated blade, but her ardent blade ran him through, her broken arm healing in a flare of golden light. Soaring to Inquisitor Greyfax atop a sarcophagus, she heard Greyfax shout, "I erred, and I shall do penance. You truly are an instrument of the Emperor's will." Celestine replied, "I erred, and I shall do penance. You truly are an instrument of the Emperor's will." Celestine replied,
Vigilance is not a sin, Katerina Greyfax. You serve him, as surely as I. Greyfax nodded. Then let us serve him together. Lunging into the fray beside her. Inspired, the Loyalists, Togorius, Cole, Yvraine, the Visage, followed Guilliman. Yvraine's blade turned a Chaos Space Marine to ash, the Visage severing another's arms, basking in his corrupted soul's energy. Togorius' psychic shockwaves shattered armour, his gaze meeting Guilliman's appraising stare for a heartbeat, before the Primarch stormed on. Guilliman's rampage left mutated corpses in his wake, his expression a granite mask of millennia-old hate, awakening from Fulgrim's poison to face these twisted parodies of Astartes. He discerned loyal from the tainted, compartmentalising questions for later, his swords, arcs of fury, and the hand of Dominion's volleys reaped a bloody toll, eventually revealing Marneus Calgar, battered but alive, staring in awe at his gene-sire. Grandmaster Voldus and his paladins drove back the Chaos Sorcerers, Voldus's hammer smashing one's helm in a crackling spray. The last sorcerer, facing Guilliman, conjured witchlight, but the Primarch's hand of dominion hoisted him aloft, the Emperor's sword cleaving him from midriff to crown, spilling his innards. Leaderless, the Black Legion fled, but none would escape the fortress of Hera alive, their defeat sealed by the Avenging Sun's unrelenting fury. As Ultramarine reinforcements stormed into the Temple of Correction, the battle's echoes faded, replaced by awe-struck silence. Every warrior dropped to his knees, reverent before the reborn Rabute Guilliman. The Primarch, calm and commanding, issued strategic orders, eschewing questions about his resurrection or the strangers around him. None questioned him, their wonder tempered by fear, as war still raged beyond the shrine's walls. News of Guilliman's return blazed through the fortress of Hera, broadcast from Vox speakers, shouted from ramparts, and carried by cyber cherubim fluttering through the chaos. Guilliman ensured its spread, knowing his presence would galvanise his forces and unnerve the enemy. Ultramarines and Defence Auxilia, initially bewildered, drew newfound strength, while Chaos champions faltered, their resolve shaken by the living Primarch's martial glory. Guilliman marched to the Strategium, where, in a moment destined for immortalisation in statuary, he accepted command from First Captain Agaman. Marneus Calgar, grievously wounded and supported by his honour guards, stood resolute. Guilliman, with noble humility, requested, "May I assume full command of the Ultramarines, Chapter Master?" Calgar, grimacing, knelt and vowed, "My unending fealty is to you, my gene-sire. The chapter is yours in perpetuity." At the Strategium table, Guilliman's hands moved like an impresario's, his strategic genius reshaping the battle. Absorbing reams of data, he issued orders that turned engagements into the defender's favour. His mental acuity surpassing even Calgar's superhuman campaigning skills. Firestorms and interceptor strikes cleared the skies, enabling reserves and Defence Auxilia to deploy in masterful patterns. Feints, ambushes and counterstrikes, shredding the Chaos forces. Guilliman anticipated every enemy move, countering with preternatural foresight. Leading the final assault, Guilliman's advance was a death blow to the reeling Chaos forces. Black Legion, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and Night Lords were driven from the fortress, their titans toppling like flaming monoliths. Within 3 hours, Guilliman purged the invaders, declaring the stronghold secure. As servitors and serfs shored up crumbling defences, he summoned a select group to the Chapter Master's sanctum, now his own. There, amidst the ranking officers of the Ultramarines chapter and the Celestinians, Guilliman was invested as Lord of Ultramar. Saint Celestine bestowed her blessings, while Yvraine and the Visage watched from the shadows, their cold gazes unknowable. Rising, Guilliman declared, "There is much to be done. I require answers to all that has transpired in my absence." The war,
a dark mirror of reality, rippled with the resonance of momentous events. Its fathomless depths stirred by the resurrection of Primarch Guilliman. Tsunamis of empiric turmoil surged outward, drawing the gaze of Chaos's champions. Fulgrim, lounging amidst a banquet of souls, scowled as demon imps whispered of his brother's return. Rising from his velvet throne, he vowed to Slaanesh, "This time I will ensure Guilliman's eternal fall from grace." In Tzeentch's crystalline mazes, demons watched fate's weave shift, each plotting to taint, tempt, or destroy the Primarch in subtle, varied schemes, guided by their master's will. Within Nurgle's fetid garden, great unclean ones, bile dripping from festering chins, chortled at messenger flies' news. "The Primarch untouched by our brothers," they leered, humming a ditty as they concocted a demigod-slaying plague, dreaming of reconciling Mortarion with his long-lost brother. Across the Mendock's cataclysm, Khorne's champions burned 88 worlds. Their gods' apoplectic bellows, "Guilliman lives!" spawning warp storms as they vied to claim his skull, scorning corruption for slaughter. Other Dark Lords sensed Guilliman's beacon. Abaddon, forewarned by Zaraphiston's visions, had forged a traitor alliance to preempt the resurrection, launching the Ultramar invasion. Its failure enraged him, and he bound Keros Fateweaver to muster fresh forces. Mortarion's cold fury seeded 7 plagues across Imperial planets, his plans delaying his strike, though he vowed, "Guilliman and his empire will soon rot through." Magnus, laughing with delight, saw new paths of fate unfold, issuing orders through crystalline insects to rally his 1,000 sons, eager to punish another ancient foe after Fenris's fall. Traitor warbands rode empiric tides toward Ultramar, their bloodlust echoing. Warp storms, birthed by Cadia's fall and Bealtan's shattering, swelled, yawning maws of fangs and tentacles swallowing worlds in darkness, time fracturing around them. Within the warp, demonic legions shifted from nightmarish battlefields to real space, tasked with Guilliman's demise. Yet, opportunism sparked new wars. Khorne's blood legions, on a city-sized cogwork scorpion, stormed Tzeentch's crystal labyrinth, met by flame-belching demons. Slaanesh's hedonists invaded Nurgle's garden, while the plague god's sluggard host rived into Khorne's iron fire bastion, eternal rivalries flaring. Still, the dark gods fixed their gaze on Guilliman, their worshippers scheming his downfall. Unaware of this maelstrom, Guilliman grappled with the shock of their decaying Imperium. Alone in the Chapter Master's sanctuary, he let his mask fall, groaning. "Millennia have passed. Thousands of years, and look what has become of them. Of us. Idolatry, ignorance, suffering and squalor, in the name of a god who never desired the title." Staring at banners depicting the Emperor haloed, he lamented, "We failed, Father. You failed your sons, and we, in our turn, failed you. And now, to compound our arrogance and vainglory, we have failed all of them too. Did Horus not say that you sought godhood? He built a rebellion upon that claim. How he would gloat to see the Imperium now." Anger surged, but despair threatened to overwhelm him. "Why do I still live?" he snarled at the Woven Emperor. "What more do you want from me? I gave everything I had to you, to them. Look what they've made of our dream. This bloated, rotten carcass of an empire is driven not by reason and hope, but by fear, hate, and ignorance. Better we had all burned in the fires of Horus's ambition than live to see this. Yet, his idealism flickered, unquenchable. There's hope still, he told himself, palm against a stained glass window, gazing at ultramarines standing resolute amidst war-torn ramparts. All of this misery, he declared, is not the doing of humanity, but of those who have betrayed us. Too long have the pawns of chaos dictated our species' fate. That must end. Locking away sorrow, Guilliman stoked his rage, vowing to make chaos pay for the Imperium's torment. Chapter 5. Reclamation. 4 days after his coronation, Rabute Guilliman emerged from the chapter master's sanctum, his mind sharpened and his resolve steeled. Marneus Calgar, despite his wounds, had tirelessly led the Ultramarines' defence, but now ceded command to his gene-sire with unwavering loyalty. Recognising Calgar's brilliance, Guilliman kept him close, seeking his counsel in the battles ahead. Chief Librarian Tigurius, his psychic powers honed by a darker age, became a trusted advisor. The Primarch accepting the Librarius's evolved role. In a surprising move, Guilliman included Grandmaster Voldus, Archmagus Cor, Saint Celestine, and Inquisitor Greyfax among his lieutenants, valuing their diverse insights. In unity lies strength, he declared, marshalling the Imperium's varied arms to reclaim Macragge. The chapter planet, besieged by chaos, was the linchpin. Its fall would doom even a Primarch. The war for Macragge raged for over a month, a relentless tempest driven by Guilliman's indomitable will, like an avatar of the Emperor, for that is what he was. He led lightning-fast offensives, clearing the valley of Laponis and the ravaged Magna Civitas. Iron Warrior's siege guns, their semi-sentient mechanisms writhing, were obliterated by melter charges, their whip-fisted overseers executed with precision. Chaos cultists, chanting in gilded domes and hab blocks, were encircled and cut down systematically. Agaman, Celestine, and Greyfax spearheaded strikes to reclaim orbital batteries, ruby lances piercing the heavens to drive Chaos warships from their orbits above the fortress monastery. Tank Commander Antaro Cronus led armoured columns sweeping traitors from the Magletine Highlands into the Faramis Ocean's stormy depths. Voldus and his Grey Knights purged Colossi, battling the Night Lords and halting a blood ritual, though the city was later raised from orbit to cleanse its taint. Guilliman's assaults on Valmari, Mount Tarfus, and the snowy Galinus Pass crushed all resistance, his visionary strategies melding with the Ultramarines' discipline to form an unstoppable force. Defence Auxilia fortified each conquest, repelling Chaos counterattacks with overwhelming might. Though Heretic Astartes inflicted heavy losses, they faltered against Guilliman's unmatched acumen, warband after warband falling. Fleeing traitors found no refuge, their ships reduced to burning wrecks by the Ultramar defence fleet. After weeks of brutal conflict, Macragge stood liberated, its salvation a testament to the Primarch's relentless crusade. Macragge stood cleansed of chaos, the first step in Rabute Guilliman's reconquest of Ultramar. Driven to purge the ruinous powers, the Primarch paused, granting his battered forces time to heal and repair. Countless wounded warriors and war machines demanded attention, and Guilliman, ever the strategist, allowed this respite. Above Macragge, Imperial reinforcements braved raging warp storms. Space Marine vessels from Primogenitor chapters, Nova Marines, Sons of Aura, Genesis chapter, and more, gathering to witness the Primarch's return. Kneeling before him, they swore allegiance, bolstering the growing Ultramar reconquest. Amid this muster, the Archconsul of Magna Civitas proposed a grand victory parade, its pick cast to spread hope across the Imperium. People need the light of hope in this dark hour, he urged. A shining example of victory to renew their faith in the Emperor and Guilliman reborn.
Though his inner despair clashed with such pomp, Guilliman saw its wisdom. Grudgingly, he agreed. Days later, a triumph swept from the Titan Gate to the fortress of Hera's steps. Thousands of war machines and millions of warriors raised colours, their cheers and horn blasts shaking the heavens. Magna Civitas' citizens, a seething sea, packed, cratered processionals, their roars uniting in praise of Guilliman. From a marble column platform, flanked by Calgar, Togurius, Vuldus, Call, Celestine and Greyfax, the Primarch presented a spectacle of martial splendour. The Arch-Consul offered a golden laurel wreath, urging, "Don the gilded crown at once." As Guilliman complied, visions of glory flooded his mind. Vast armies dying for him, worlds renamed in his honour, chaos fleeing like curs, statues rising, the golden throne his to claim. "The Emperor's most loyal son deserves no less," whispered a seductive thought. The final vision snapped Guilliman from the trance. With a gasp, he tore off the wreath, bellowing, "Restrain the Arch-Consul!" Grandmaster Vuldus seized the dignitary, whose flesh sizzled under blessed gauntlets, unravelling his illusion. The crowd's din masked the shriek as a bulbous, mutant abomination emerged, an amulet on human skin glowing at its neck. Fulgrim's mocking voice hissed within Guilliman's mind, as it had on Thessala. "Welcome back to your beloved Imperium, brother. I conceal the fragment of my animus in this amulet, the crown of glories. Many pure heroes fell to this blandishment, yet you reject my gift. This is but the first of endless temptations you'll face. You'll never trust triumph or self-satisfaction again." Disgusted, Guilliman drove the Emperor's sword through the amulet and the creature, silencing Fulgrim's taunts. Yet, as the triumph roared on, the demon Primarch's words lingered, haunting Guilliman for days. As Guilliman's armies mustered on Macragge, Imperial forces flocked to the Primarch's banner. Dark Angels and Raven Guards sent cautious delegations to verify the miracle, while Space Wolves, White Scars, Black Templars and others arrived in fervent celebration. A glorious reunion unfolded when the Black Templars landed, embracing Marshal Emmerich, sole survivor of the Shrine battle. His zealous gaze prompted their chaplains to declare him touched by the hand of the Emperor, girding him with the Black Blade aboard the Scourge of Heretics. Imperial Navy admirals, Night World barons, Adeptus Mechanicus fleets with Titan legions, and Administratum processions swore fealty. A Ministorum Cyber Synod, after confirming Guilliman's divinity, proclaimed it, Celestine and Greyfax urging, "Better to have them as a firebrand ally than an obstreperous foe." Guilliman, weary of their idolatry, acquiesced. Before departing the fortress of Hera, Guilliman issued a decree. Now is an age of wrath and war, in which learning and law must be set aside. Shocking his chapter, he barred the library of Ptolemy under pain of death, sealing its secrets behind adamantium and servitor guns. He commissioned the Strategium Ultra, a war room to orchestrate his reconquest. Relieved to escape the Imperium's bureaucracy, Guilliman led his armies into battle. The Macragge system, plagued by chaos, was his first target. On Ardium, the Iron Warrior's bitter sons had seized a subterranean hive. Guilliman, with Ultramarines 4th and 6th Companies, joined auxiliary garrisons, storming Hive Magmaria through gore-choked tunnels. The Iron Warriors fought to the last, but Guilliman's forces prevailed, blood flooding the Hive's sumps. At Laphis, Marnius Calgar, aboard Macragge's honour, led the defence fleet against an Alpha Legion blockade. Ultramarine ships drove back the traitors, only for Alpha Legion cultists in explosive-laden bulk carriers to cripple several vessels. Calgar, anticipating treachery,
unveiled a reserve fleet from behind Aurora, while Tech Marines activated Laphas's orbital grid, annihilating the Alpha Legion in a three-pronged assault. With the Macragge system secured, Guilliman's armies swept into Ultramar's neighbouring systems. Revoking past treaties, he declared, "In such grim and desperate times, I will see my empire forged anew," uniting its worlds under his banner. Iron Hands and Praetors of Orpheus liberated Thalassar Secundus. Dark Angels and Legio Fulminari freed Iskara. Nova Marines, Mechanicus, and Battle Sisters crushed mutants on Connor Prime. Coordinated from the Strategium Ultra, Guilliman's forces overcame warp storms and demonic incursions. Yet the long war endured, Ultramar's vastness and its tenacious invaders prolonging the bloody crusade. 7 months into the Ultramar reconquest, a sinister affliction emerged across the Droll, Thalassar, and Parmenio systems. Ultramar Defense Auxilia succumbed to uncontrollable weeping, their eyes streaming viscous, stinking tears that blinded them, turning red raw and, in dire cases, rotting away entirely. Name the sorrow, or weeping plague. It spread relentlessly, carried by biting mites infesting rations, uniforms, ammunition, and even Imperial primers. No sanitary measures stemmed their proliferation. The siege of Leotold's Keep collapsed under the plague's weight, and the River Shal offensive stalled as soldiers became wailing, blinded husks. Only mortal Auxilia suffered. Adeptus Astartes and Mechanicus tech thralls remained untouched, and few Adeptus Sororitas fell ill, their faith, or Celestine's presence, deemed protective. Guilliman, fearless of the disease, rushed to Thalassar, leaving Prandium's war to Tigurius and Greyfax, driven by compassion for his mortal troops. Landing amid Iron Warrior's flak screens on River Shal's circuit plains, Guilliman's Thunderhawk delivered him to the Soldermask Valley's fortified encampment. Over the roar of servitor guns holding demon engines at bay, he ordered the Ultramarine commander to guide him to the sick. Thousands languished in prefab sheds, their lamentations chilling even the Primarch. Yet as the doors opened, their sobbing ceased. Auxilia rose, eyes clear, even the blind finding restful sleep. Guilliman's presence banished the sorrow, mites dying in black drifts. This miracle repeated across 3 more encampments, the ecclesiarchy proclaiming, "It is the Emperor's mercy, shining from his sun as healing light." Guilliman's pilgrimage to heal his troops stretched into weeks, diverting him from the wider war. The sorrow recurred in cleared sights, and Chaos forces overturned Imperial gains in Viridian and Tarvan. Warp storms worsened, threatening to isolate Ultramar. Grandmaster Voldus confronted Guilliman, daring his wrath. "Weeks of labour have been for naught. You are not healing your subjects, for such is not your gift. This weeping plague bears Nurgle's hallmarks. The plague god withdraws his blessings when you arrive, only to restore them once you depart, trapping you in despair." Guilliman, though furious, saw the truth of his words. Nurgle sought to confine him, thwarting his galactic mission. "My desire for a perfect Ultramar echoes past mistakes," he admitted, resolving to focus on the Imperium at large. He ceased his healing efforts, charging the apothecaries and chaplains to find a spiritual cure. Announcing his intent to journey to Terra, Guilliman vowed, "I reached Terra too late once. I will not again." With warp storms surging, he assembled a force. Ultramarines from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd companies, under Cato Sicarius. Voldus's Grey Knights. Primogeniture chapters. Amorex Black Templars. Celestine, Greyfax, and Cor. Calgar, Tigurius, and Agamemnon remained to lead Ultramar's reconquest. The Ynnari departed, Yvraine stating, "We have our own wars to fight." In his audience chamber, alone with Yevrain and the Visage, Guilliman said, "Can I say nothing that will convince you to join us on our road? I have come to value the strength of you and your warriors greatly this past weeks."
Yevrain replied, "You cannot. Already we have given you the gift of rebirth, not to mention a number of our people's lives. Is that not enough?"
Guilliman conceded. "It is a debt I am sure won't be forgotten. Before you depart, tell me this. Cole may have fashioned the armour that I wear, but it was not he alone who ensured my resurrection, was it?" Yevrain smiled.
"His technology would have healed your physical wounds, Rebute, but you and I know that the worst damage had been done to your soul. So know, Primarch, it is by the grace of Yniad that you stand once more amongst the living. If you wish to remain, however, I would caution you against removing your warplate. Not that you could easily do so."
Guilliman's face flickered with pain. Then duty. "I could press you for greater insights into the powers that brought me back, and assurances against any taint in their nature," he said, noting their tension. "But I suspect that our newfound understanding is of more value to my father's realm than my own satisfaction, and that those answers would not come easily."
Yevrain inclined her head, the Visage easing his hand from his blade. Guilliman concluded,
"Thus, instead, I shall simply wish you victory in your ongoing battles against our mutual foes."
Yevrain replied, "May you walk with fortune, Rebute Guilliman, and know that we shall stand together in battle again, before whatever end befalls us."
The Visage saluted, and Guilliman murmured, "No doubt we will, so long as it serves your needs," as they departed. The Celestinian Crusade had ended. The Terran Crusade had begun. Chapter 6. The Terran Crusade. The warp seethed with chaos, its temporal riptides and squalls of madness battering Rebute Guilliman's Terran Crusade fleet. Whirlpools of arrogance, storms of anger and lust, and misery-laden straits teeming with demonic entities tested the fleet's resolve. Navigators, pleading for caution, guided the ships through short, harrowing warp jumps, often ending in frantic real-space crash dives to escape mounting dangers. Several ships were lost. The Pride of Hera suffered a Gellerfield breach, Nurgle's demons spilling through its corridors like living pus. Inquisitor Greyfax, leading Adeptus Sororitas and Praetors of Orpheus, purged the infestation with flame and sanctified bolts, slaying the plague demon's leader in a daring leap from a gantry. Despite such horrors, the crusade pressed on, driven by the Primarch's mission to reach Terra. Those who quell in the face of such a momentous calling would surely be damned, whispered the faithful, emboldened by St. Celestine's blessings. Aboard Macrag's honour, Guilliman found solace in familiarity, hoping Ultramar's warp storms were meant to trap him. As the fleet ventured further, however, and the tempests persisted, his hope faded. At each real space drop, Guilliman's astropaths scoured the void, their communiques revealing a nightmarish Imperium, systems ravaged by unnatural phenomena, demonic incursions and mutations, psychers spawning terrors, loyal populations turning into cultist mobs, Xenos and demons uniting in the slaughter, starforts and fleets crying out as warp predators struck. Whispers of old night and the age of strife haunted the crew, though none, not even Guilliman, voiced such dread. Weeks of high alert, frayed tempers, even among the Astartes, while helots and armsmen grew lax under constant readiness. At the Maelstrom's edge, swollen with unholy power, the fleet faced its greatest threat. Navigators wailed of an endless, impossibly immense tornado in the warp, the Astronomican's light faltering.
Captains ordered an immediate real space translation. Ships tearing through reality's veil, ectoplasm trailing their hulls. Yet impact shook them, void shields flaring. The wings of glory exploded, and Primarch's wrath collided with hope and fire, both being crippled. Auspexes revealed a traitor armada, Thousand Suns warships in perfect ambush formation, led by a cyclopean silver pyramid, Tiscar's Revenge, its red crystal eye glaring. Guilliman recognised Magnus the Red's handiwork, the craft a warped echo of Prospero's Great Pyramid, trapped between the Maelstrom's sorcery and Magnus's fleet. The Imperials fought desperately, torpedoes and lances blazing, but their scattered ships suffered grievously under rune-inscribed warp flame. Guilliman issued relentless orders, striving to rally his fleet, inwardly raging at Magnus's cunning and his own oversight. From Tiscar's Revenge, Magnus watched, amused, his sorcerers chanting as he summoned empiric tendrils. "I have no desire to kill my resurrected brother. Not yet, anyway," he mused, completing his spell. The tendrils ensnared the Crusade fleet, dragging it into the Maelstrom's raging heart. The Terran Crusade, once a proud armada bearing the Emperor's light, was cast into the abyss of the Maelstrom, where the veil between reality and the warp frayed like a tattered shroud. The fleet, numbering over 100 vessels at its outset, had been ambushed by the sorcerous machinations of Magnus the Red, his Thousand Suns weaving a spell that tore the Crusade ships from the Materium's embrace. Empiric tendrils, like the grasping limbs of some unholy leviathan, coiled about the hulls, crushing bulkheads and shattering void shields. Fires roared through decks, gravity twisted into punishing waves, and the screams of the faithful mingled with the howling of demons as unwarded ships were dragged into the Immaterium's maw. Tech adepts, their rituals faltering under the strain, fought to raise Gellerfields, but many vessels succumbed, overrun by gibbering fiends. Only the unyielding resolve of the Imperial's armies, Space Marines, Navy crews, and Mechanicus servitors held the Crusade from utter annihilation. When the Sorcerer's tempest subsided, the fleet emerged, battered and broken, within the Maelstrom's cursed expanse. Here, reality and the warp bled into one another, a morass of unnatural energies where stars hid behind veils of shimmering gloom and twisted worlds hung like sores in the void. Rebute Guilliman, Lord of Ultramar, stood in his strategium, his piercing gaze assessing the toll. Belisarius Call, his mechanical frame whirring with purpose, coordinated repair crews to stabilise the mauled fleet, saving what ships he could from collapse. The cost was grievous. Of 112 ships, barely half remained. Some had been obliterated by the Thousand Suns' blistering assault. Others cast adrift on the Immaterium's tides, their fates unknown. Scattered, lost, or worse, claimed by chaos. Every fighter craft launched in the brief battle was gone, their pilots condemned to the void's cold embrace. Hundreds of chapter serfs, crewmen, and servitors lay dead or maddened, and even the Adeptus Astartes bore scars, their numbers diminished. No ship emerged unscathed, many so damaged they teetered on the brink of ruin. Guilliman, surrounded by his captains, voiced a gnawing suspicion. The Thousand Suns had known precisely where and when the Crusade would emerge from the war, their ambush too precise to be chance. Why, then, had Magnus spared them? The Primarch's mind, honed by centuries of strategy, recoiled at the thought of his brother's cunning. Magnus did nothing without purpose, yet he had allowed the Crusade to limp on. The question tormented Guilliman, a splinter in his resolve, as the fleet drifted through the Maelstrom's accursed tides, far from the Emperor's Astronomicon, with no beacon to guide their path. Hope flickered briefly, when faint transmissions emanated from a nearby moon, a dark planetoid shrouded in pale skies. Seizing the chance to find a traitor guide or heretic instruments hardened against the warp's chaos, Guilliman ordered landing parties to descend. Gunships and drop pods streaked through the thin atmosphere, touching down on a world of vitrified continents, its glassy surface scoured by screaming winds. An unnatural light pulsed within the planet's core, filling the Loyalists with dread. Amid glinting mountain peaks they found an armoured fortification, clinging like a parasite to the stone. Guilliman led the assault, his burning blade cleaving through renegade space marines within, red corsairs, their chapter icons defaced with crude crosses. The Primarch's fury was a storm, joined by the Grey Knights' Dread Knights under Voldus, who crushed the traitors and slew their leaders in a brief, brutal clash. Yet, as Guilliman seized the last renegade alive in the fortress's Vox array, a demonic presence manifested. The air crackled, rime coated the walls, and the captive's voice twisted into two mocking tones. "Even now, Ultramar burns," it sneered, claiming Guilliman had abandoned his people to wander the maelstrom eternally. With a sickening crack, the captive's head twisted, and the Vox banks exploded in sparks. Guilliman cursed, vowing to hunt the demon and wring truth from its lies. The fleet pressed on, directionless, time unravelling in the maelstrom's warped currents. Guilliman chose a heading by instinct, the only plan left to him. Days, weeks, or centuries bled together, each moment a torment as the Primarch wrestled with the demon's words. Scout ships reported a twisted, fleshy planet, ringed by crystalline skulls, patrolled by heretic craft. Guilliman ordered an attack, prioritising intelligence, maps, charts, or traitor navigators to guide them. The fleet descended, only to face the planet's wrath. Emperor's Children warships unleashed sonic shockwaves from the skulls' mouths, while augmetic tentacles, stitched to the planet's living surface, snatched Mechanicus ships, dragging them into a gaping continent-sized maw. Torpedo volleys severed the tentacles, and lance fire shattered skulls and crippled traitor vessels. Boarding parties seized star charts, but triumph turned to ash. Every map was blank, save for the demon's mocking words, scrawled endlessly. The entity's torment was personal, a blade aimed at Guilliman's heart. The crusade endured relentless trials. Traitor warships raided from the shadows, forcing desperate battles. A cloud of corrosive spores birthed plague flies the size of frigates, savaging smaller ships until St. Celestine, radiant in the navigator's blister of Macrag's honour, unleashed a holy shockwave, purging the demonic insects. In another reach, warp ghosts swarmed the fleet's reclusium shrines, draining sacred relics and dragging faint, screaming spirits from helms and scrolls. Voldus and his Grey Knights, alongside outraged chaplains, banished the leeches through teleport strikes, preserving the relic's sanctity. Yet the fleet's supplies dwindled, crews exhausted by ceaseless combat, and Guilliman's resolve wavered under horrific visions. Ultramar in flames, Mars shattered, Terra ruined, the Emperor's corpse burning on a broken golden throne. Demonic voices whispered that these were not truths but futures, fates that would unfold if Guilliman escaped the maelstrom. They urged him to relent, to embrace despair and save the Imperium by remaining trapped. The Primarch hid his struggle, his stoic facade a beacon for his followers, but each vision eroded his will like waves against a cliff. At last, the fleet reached Bathamor, its name a malicious whisper in every psyker's mind. Auspex scans revealed a world of kaleidoscopic crystal jungles and fiery rivers, teeming with renegade energy signatures. Guilliman ordered a combat drop, desperate for intelligence to escape the maelstrom's endless torment. Imperial forces slammed into the jungles, shards exploding around them. Auspex readings vanished, and Zentian demons attacked. There, sorcerous flames and mutating energies clawing at the Ultramarines. Crystal trees detonated, shredding flesh and armour.
Amid the chaos, Guilliman faced Kiros Fateweaver, a two-headed demon clad in shimmering robes, wielding a staff of temporal power. One head mocked his futile quest, claiming every future ended in failure. The other sneered that Guilliman, unremarkable among the Emperor's sons, could never save the Imperium. Enraged, Guilliman drove the demon back with his burning blade, leading a fighting retreat, his resolve held, unyielding to the Oracle's lies. The Crusade's battered ships limped onward, many scuttled from accumulated damage. A world of black marble and blood seas offered a new target: red Corsair strongholds. Guilliman's forces struck swiftly, eliminating outlying enclaves before besieging a fortified palace on a claw-shaped headland, its gory waves eroding sanity. Call coordinated the siege, while Greyfax and Sicarius led a daring raid, breaching the gates and sealing the traitor's fate. Yet victory was fleeting. The ocean's screams and ominous shapes in the ashen skies promised further peril. As Mechanicus haulers stripped the fortress, Guilliman wandered its twisted corridors alone, entering a chamber of crystal statues. A shimmering mist rose, revealing a slender alien figure, willowy limbs, a curved helm, a long stave. Its voice, swimming in and out of perception, offered a heading, untainted by chaos's corruption. Weary of trickery, Guilliman sensed its energies were akin to the Eldar who aided his resurrection. The figure vanished, leaving a spark of hope. With renewed purpose, the Primarch vowed to follow this path, determined to escape the Maelstrom and defy the demon's lies. The Red Corsairs. For 3 centuries, the Astral Claws stood sentinel beyond the Maelstrom's yawning maw, their vigilance a bulwark against the warp's terrors. Yet, in defiance of sacred decree, they withheld their gene seed tithes, a betrayal that drew the Imperium's scrutiny. An Imperial fleet, dispatched to probe the chapter's silence, entered orbit around Badab, the homeworld, only to be consumed by a sudden ferocious firestorm. Loft Huron, chapter master of the Astral Claws, had orchestrated the ambush, ensuring no ship escaped to bear witness to his treachery. Word of the massacre still reached the Adeptus Terra, but slowly. The response, however, was inevitable. A tide of retribution that could not be stemmed. Loyal Space Marine chapters, their honour stung by the betrayal, were sent to crush the self-styled tyrant of Badab and his renegades. Huron's charisma, however, proved a venomous lure, drawing the Mantis Warriors, Executioners, and Lamenters chapters to his cause, swelling his nascent empire. The war was merciless. Huron's forces fought with the desperate zeal of those cornered by their own choices, while the Loyalists strove to wipe away the dishonour to the Astartes as a whole. The war culminated in the storming of the Palace of Thorns on Badab, where Huron's dominion was shattered. The Imperium's triumph was absolute, but the Astral Claws and their most corrupted allies evaded annihilation, fleeing into the Maelstrom's warped embrace. There, amidst the hellish tides, they were reborn as the Red Corsairs, not merely surviving, but thriving in their piratical exile. Now led by Huron Blackheart, the tyrant of Badab, this traitor host grew vast, welcoming any renegade space marine who swore allegiance to his banner. From hidden strongholds woven throughout the Maelstrom, the Red Corsairs sustained themselves through conquest and plunder, turning their guns with relish upon those they once called brothers. Their betrayal a blight upon the Emperor's realm. Chapter 7. The Chains of Fate. The remnants of the Terran Crusade, a battered shadow of the proud armada that had sailed from Ultramar, pressed onward with a flicker of renewed purpose. Guided by the cryptic words of a shimmering alien figure, its form hinting at Eldar origins, yet untainted by the warp's corruption, The fleet followed a heading towards salvation. Macragg's Honour, Guilliman's flagship, led the way, its scarred hull a testament to the trials endured. Though reduced to a third of its original strength, the Crusade's warriors stood resolute, their weapons primed for the ceaseless threats of the Maelstrom. Engines roared, carving through veils of frozen ichor and meteors encrusted with unblinking eyes, their eerie gaze seeming to track the fleet's passage. A distant star of pure white beckoned, resolving into a flaming rift in reality, a prophesied landmark from the stranger's vision. Guilliman, his heart stirred by cautious hope, ordered a new heading, and the fleet plunged into the sprawling expanse of the mauve gas clouds. These mists twisted into unrecognisable sigils, pulsing with the eldritch power of change, a reminder of the Maelstrom's treachery. Days bled into an indeterminate haze as the fleet emerged from the gas belt, their auspexes detecting a triad of planets locked in an endless whirling dance. This too matched the stranger's words, and Guilliman's hope swelled, tempered by the weariness of one who knew the cost of trust in this accursed realm. The fleet adjusted course, angling toward a constellation of jade-green glimmers, the final marker before escape, if the apparition's promise held true. Yet the path led through a region the figure had called the resting place of hollow ghosts, a name that chilled even the stoutest hearts. As the fleet approached, what seemed like a silvered speckling of space grew into a breathtaking, eerie vista. Thousands of wrecked ships drifted in a vast graveyard, bound by webs of brass chain that gleamed under the jade star's light. Imperial warships, ancient and broken, hung alongside splintered Eldar craft, hollow Kroot warspheres, and the skeletal remains of Hrud Warren ships. Stranger still, were the unrecognisable hulks, black glass needles, ravaged hive-like structures, angular leviathans, and tiny ellipsoid vessels. How they came to rest here, chained in this cosmic sepulchre, was a mystery that gnawed at the soul. But their hazard was clear. The chains and wrecks formed a labyrinth, daring the crusade to pass. Guilliman and his captains considered circumnavigating the graveyard, but its expanse stretched endlessly in all directions. To reach the Maelstrom's edge, they must thread the needle. The Primarch gave the order, and the fleet spread out, battle barges taking the lead with void shields raised. Progress was tortuous, the wrecks chained mere miles apart, tangled like prey in a spider's web. Tech magi and chapter serfs tensed at every groan of hulls, every scrape of chain against adamantium. Collisions were inevitable. Ice-cold links gouged gashes in reinforced exteriors, and ancient wreckage shattered into the void as battle barges nudged aside obstructing hulks. Each impact frayed nerves. Each near miss tested the crew's endurance. Hours crawled by, the silence of the graveyard broken only by the creak of chains and the distant hum of engines. Archmage's call, his mechanical mind passing Auspex data, announced clear space ahead. The navigators, roused from their near-comatose state, murmured of a faint flicker. The Astronomican's light, glimpsed like a beacon through a cracked door. Guilliman urged caution, but his hope surged. Escape was near, the Maelstrom's grip loosening. As Macragg's Honour thrust aside the shattered hulk of an iconoclast destroyer, an open path to the graveyard's edge yawned before the fleet. Then, treachery struck. Alarms screamed across the flagship's bridge as power spikes flared among the derelicts. Chaos warships, red corsairs, their hulls disguised with cosmetic damage and severed chains, roared to life, their drives igniting and gun decks unshrouding. Guided by Keros Fateweaver's precognitive malice, the traitors had lain in wait, masquerading as lifeless wrecks. Now they unleashed their ambush, lance beams searing through Imperial hulls. Noble warriors, veterans of countless trials, perished in firestorms or were torn into the void's merciless embrace. The Crusade, hemmed in and outflanked, faced catastrophe. Several ships tried to break free. The Raven Guard frigate Silent Blade was shorn in two,
its halves drifting among the chains. The Loyalists fought back, their guns hammering at point-blank range, tearing chunks from the enemy's vessels. Yet the Red Corsairs, secure in their advantage, targeted weapon batteries, Auspex arrays and engineeriums, aiming to cripple rather than destroy, their piratical greed coveting the Crusade ships and armaments. Guilliman cursed the Zentian cunning behind the trap, his mind racing with counter-strategies. As boarding torpedoes launched from the enemy craft, he barked orders to prepare for boarders, his voice a clarion call amid the chaos. McCragg's Honour's defence batteries roared, shredding incoming torpedoes with streams of firepower. The Primarch studied external pig feeds, reading the patterns of destruction, until a direct hit on the primary Auspex drowned the screens in static. Turning to his data font, Guilliman issued a fleet-wide order, his tone steady despite the storm. "Your courage has carried us through trials unnumbered," he said, commending his warriors. "Defend your bridges, magazines, shields and warp engines. The Emperor's light guides us still. Repel the foe, and then break free to rendezvous beyond the Maelstrom's edge." Swallowing his distaste for religious fervour, he added, "His blessings upon you all." With Captain Sicarius, St. Celestine, and Inquisitor Greyfax at his side, Guilliman donned his helm and joined the defence of the bridge. Vox transmissions crackled with reports, boarding torpedoes struck by the dozen. The lower decks were overrun. Sergeant Abstrophuses, devastators holding the engineerium's bulkheads. Then, a dire warning. A demonic creature, leading a chaotic horde, swept toward the bridge. Moments later, the bulkhead shuddered, then erupted inward on a wave of unnatural flame, heralding the enemy's assault. The bridge, on McCragg's honour, became a bastion of defiance as the Red Corsairs' ambush erupted into a savage onslaught, their chaos-tainted ferocity crashing against the Ultramarines' unyielding resolve. Outnumbered but entrenched, Guilliman's sons held a position forged for such a breach, consoles doubling as barricades, their defence a testament to the Primarch's foresight. From elevated gantries and balconies, warriors overlooked the shattered bulkhead, their bolters primed amidst the bridge's looming grandeur. The first wave, grotesque pink horrors of Zench, bounded and cartwheeled into the open, only to be obliterated by a storm of disciplined fire. Bolter rounds thundered, their echoes rolling like a tempest, joined by plasma blasts, las beams, and missiles that tore the deck into blackened ruin. Demons burst into ectoplasmic clouds, their smaller simulacra erupting from ruined husks only to be mowed down in turn. Red Corsairs, their armour defaced with the symbols of fallen chapters, lunged for cover, but many fell, their corpses twitching under relentless salvos. The enemy pressed forward, undeterred by the slaughter. A jet of purple flame melted a gantry into slime, sending Red Corsair Terminators plummeting into the Vox pits. Crack grenades shattered console barricades, claiming one veteran and forcing others to retreat. A dying Corsair, his plasma gun overheating, incinerated several Ultramarines before his weapon exploded, consuming him. The boarders gained ground, eroding the defenders' lines through reckless assaults. The air thickened, the Empyrean stirring, and Librarian Polonius screamed, clutching his skull as his psychic energies turned against him. Guilliman, with lightning reflexes, shoved Captain Sicarius clear as Polonius detonated in a wave of blue fire, dissolving the armour and flesh of nearby warriors. In the warp, deep within the impossible fortress, lies the Well of Eternity, where space and time are born and die, a riddle even Zench dares not brave. He cast his vizier, Keros Fateweaver, into its roiling depths, and the Lord of Change emerged, his body aged and ragged, his neck split to bear two heads, one seeing all possible futures, the other every moment of the past, yet blind to the present. This curse made Keros vulnerable, deployed only to twist critical junctures in Zench's plans,
ensuring allies triumph and foes falter. Guilliman's return, unforeseen by any omen, enraged the demon, threatening to unravel his many schemes. Determined to crush the Primarch, Kyros now led the assault, his precognition guiding the Red Corsair's trap. He emerged through the breach, his ragged wings spread, his staff of tomorrow tapping the deck. His two heads croaked in unison. You are a relic of a bygone age, a footnote to your father's failure. You should have stayed in the past where you belonged, Primarch, for you have no place in this future. Guilliman roared a battle cry, charging the Lord of Change, his flaming sword carving unstoppable arcs. The Hand of Dominion thundered, pulping traitors and demons, while Sicarius followed, his Telasarian Tempest Blade a golden blur, severing horned helms and cleaving warp spawn. Saint Celestine blazed with divine light, her blade scything through demons, while Inquisitor Greyfax crushed traitor minds with her telepathic might. Kyros, his prescience unmatched, had foreseen this clash. Since Guilliman entered the Maelstrom, the demon had seeded his mind with whispers, teasing out guilt, anger, and fear, emotions alien to the Primarch's ordered psyche. The filthy, scheming Eldar's interference forced an early ritual, meant for a fully broken mind. 9 heralds of Zench, cloaked in illusion, emerged amidst the fray, their babbling incantations rising over the battle's din. Bolt shells aimed at them were intercepted by lesser demons, their shimmering flesh a living shield. Kyros raised his staff, his croaking voices joining the chant, unleashing a pulse of blue flame. Guilliman faltered, bellowing as incandescent energies poured from his eyes and mouth. Green guilt, serpentine disgust, and surging red anger writhed from his mind. He struggled forward, but sank to one knee, overwhelmed. Sicarius and his brothers, roaring in fury, hacked through the foe, desperate to reach their gene-sire. Celestine and Greyfax were too locked in combat, and could but watch helplessly. The demon's chant intensified, the tendrils hardening into crystal chains that bound Guilliman's limbs, forcing him to his knees once more. Blooded by the Primarch's shells, Kyros stood unbowed, his voice ringing out. Lay down your arms, or your Primarch will be crushed and throttled before your eyes. One by one, the Ultramarines' guns fell silent, their horror palpable. Battle ceased, and Kyros Fateweaver, his trap sprung, stood triumphant, hope chained in his sorcery. Blackstone Fortress. In the dawn of the Imperium's dominion, 6 Cyclopean structures were found adrift in the void, their origins shrouded in mystery. The Blackstone Fortresses, as they came to be known, were ancient beyond reckoning, their onyx-like hulls forged of a super-hardened metal that defied all analysis. No trace remained of their creators, and the Imperium's most probing minds could glean nothing of their purpose or construction. Yet their potential was undeniable. Claimed as spoils of the Emperor's expanding realm, these dormant titans were towed into strategic orbits by pilot craft, their vast surfaces encrusted with Imperial fortifications. Even in their slumber, the fortresses served as peerless deep space naval bases, anchors of the Imperium's might amidst the stars. The true power of the Blackstone Fortresses awoke during the Gothic War, a grim chapter of Abaddon the Despoiler's Black Crusades. By some fell knowledge, the Despoiler roused these behemoths to life, their purpose revealed as weapons of apocalyptic potency. As the war raged, Abaddon's ambition became clear: to seize these titanic platforms for his Black Legion. By the conflict's end, several fortresses had fallen to his grasp, at least one reduced to ruin. In the wake of Huron Blackheart's rebellion, Abaddon bestowed one such fortress upon the Red Corsair's master, a gift of staggering magnitude. This act not only bound Huron's piratical host to the Despoiler's cause, but also proclaimed Abaddon's unrivaled power. A warlord who could part with so mighty a weapon stood supreme, his ambition a blight upon the Emperor's realm. Cypher. A shadow haunts the annals of the Dark Angels, a figure cloaked in mystery whose every step sows discord and eludes comprehension. Known only as Cypher, his name is a riddle, veiling truths none can unravel. To the sons of the Lion, he is the most despised quarry, a foe whose pursuit has consumed them since the cataclysmic fall of Caliban 10 millennia ago. Across every segmentum, Cypher emerges as if from the void, a herald of death and ruin. He does not always wield the blade himself, but acts as a catalyst, igniting hatred and mistrust into conflagrations that engulf worlds. His departures are as sudden as his arrivals, leaving devastation and whispers in his wake, with burning planets and unanswered questions trailing behind. Cypher's presence draws scrutiny like moths to a flame. Inquisitors and their agents probe for answers, while Chaos Space Marines, weary of the cryptic figure, weaving through their strongholds, seek to unravel his motives. The Dark Angels, grim and silent, inevitably follow, their black-armoured interrogator chaplains interrogating any who crossed his path. Those suspected of knowing too much vanish into the chapter's custody. Few are ever seen again. Clad in simple ceremonial robes reminiscent of the Dark Angel's own, Cypher conceals dark power armour beneath, its plates hinting at his origins. Stranger still, wherever he surfaces, the Dark Angels or their successors are never far behind, as if bound to him by some inescapable fate. None can pierce the enigma of Cypher's true nature. His loyalties shift like sand, fighting alongside Imperial and Chaos forces alike, only to betray them when it suits his purpose. Some whisper of a grand design known only to the Emperor, a plan guiding Cypher across the many ages. Others deem him a chaotic force, his existence an affront to reason. The Dark Angels have believed him neutralized countless times, yet he returns, unyielding and uncaptured. His motives remain as inscrutable as the shadows he inhabits, a spectre whose truth eludes all who seek to bind him. Chapter 8. Clash of the Infernal Powers. The battle in the Starship Graveyard had ended in bitter defeat. The Terran Crusade's hope snuffed out by Keros Fateweaver's sorcery. Primarch Guilliman, bound by crystalline chains woven from his own guilt, anger, and despair, was taken captive, his warriors forced to yield under threat of his death, which of course for some reason they all did. Those who resisted, like champion Amorek, were overwhelmed. Amorek himself wrestled down and beaten unconscious by a mob of Red Corsairs as he held his ship's engineering breach. And they didn't kill him, they just captured them. Stripped of weapons and honour, the Loyalists, hundreds of Space Marines, Grey Knights, and Skitarii, along with their war machines, were dragged under heavy guard to a Red Corsair stronghold, revealed to their shock as a Blackstone fortress, its cyclopean form, a relic of ancient might now defiled by traitors. All alive. They're all alive. The Red Corsairs captured a Primarch, Grey Knights, Black Templars, hundreds of Space Marines, and they all just let themselves get taken prisoner. I mean, I don't know. How such a structure had drifted into the Maelstrom's tides was a mystery, but its significance was overshadowed by the Loyalists' plight. Chained in adamantium, within spell-shielded cells, Guilliman languished, his psyche ensnared by Keros's vile sorcery, a prisoner of his own tormented emotions. The Blackstone Fortress, garrisoned by a vast warband under Lord Vernger, the Apostate, stood as a formidable prison. Much of the ancient structure slumbered, its secrets locked beyond the Red Corsair's grasp, but their fortifications were robust, their numbers legion, and their fleet a terror in the void. Keros, orchestrating Guilliman's capture, saw no need to slay the Primarch. A chained demigod was a prize too potent to discard. His prescience, though blind to the present, foresaw junctures where a maddened Primarch could wreak havoc to Tzeentch's delight. The Red Corsairs, lured by Keros's promises of foresight, agreed to act as jailers, ensuring Guilliman's confinement within the Maelstrom's depths. Yet fate, ever capricious, turned against the Fate Weaver. Whether stirred by the fortress's ancient energies or Guilliman's anomalous presence, skewing the strands of destiny, an unforeseen storm descended. From the Maelstrom's heart thundered an armada, its spiked battleships branded with Khorne's rune, their hulls encrusted with gore and skulls. A blood-red comet, wreathed in black flame, led the charge, its fanged maw and furious eyes marking Skarbrand, the exiled bloodthirster. Crashing into the fortress's hull with explosive force, Skarbrand unleashed a tide of Khornate warships, their guns hammering the station as landing craft spilled forth, teeming with frenzied warriors. The Red Corsairs, caught off guard, rallied with piratical cunning. Gun batteries roared, blasting landing craft from the void, while Havoc squads and obliterators unleashed withering fire, sending Khorne berserkers tumbling into the abyss. Within the fortress, pale green luminescence flickered along darkened corridors, the ancient structure rousing to warn its denizens. Red Corsairs formed disciplined firing lines, their bolter volleys filling passageways as Khornate warriors charged, chain axes carving through armour and flesh. Corpses fell, aflame with bolt-riddled wounds as the slaughter grew. Keros, screeching in dismay at this unpredicted assault, conjured Tzeentchian demons to stem the tide, but bloody mists gathered, birthing red-scaled Khornate demons that joined the carnage, their fury clashing with Tzeentch's sorcery in a maelstrom of divine wrath. Deep within the fortress, Guilliman heard the distant clangour of battle. Bound by Keros's chains, he gathered his strength, his indomitable will seeking any chance to break free. The warring gods of chaos, their enmity spilling across the Blackstone's halls, had unwittingly opened a crack in his prison, and the Primarch steeled himself for the moment fate might turn in his favour. Battle raged through the Blackstone fortress's outer corridors, the sound of bolter fire and clashing blades echoing off its ancient walls. Deep within its hidden core, eldritch energies flickered, stirring long-dormant systems. Unseen by the warring factions, a band of live figures slipped through a portal at the fortress's heart, a relic of its primordial creation. They moved with ghostly silence, a procession of shadows led by a robed figure, cloaked in ornate power armour, gliding as if untouched by the material world. Up through the darkened labyrinth they wove, the fortress responding to their presence. Iris-shaped portals sealed for millennia yawned open, exhaling ancient dust that swirled into clouds, but left no footprints in their wake. Guilliman and his ultramarines languished in cells lining a vast cylindrical chamber, sealed not by bars but by flickering sheets of mutagenic flame, their sorcerous glow casting eerie shadows. A squad of Red Corsairs stood guard, their bolters fixed on the chamber's sole functional doorway. Unseen, another portal slid open behind the guards. The Harlequins of the Laughing God emerged, their movements a silent, sinister dance to an unheard dirge. Rolling, tumbling and spinning, they closed on the renegades with blades gleaming for slaughter. The Red Corsairs' first warning came too late. A whirlwind of death erupted behind them. Harlequin rapiers pierced chest plates, blood spraying in crimson arcs. Monofilament needles slipped through power armor joints, liquefying organs in an instant. Shuriken and fusion blasts hurled traitor corpses to the floor, misted in gore. One horned, unhelmed corsair roared as a harlequin drove her blade through his knee, cartwheeling to kick his bolter away, then backflipping to smash him down with a precision strike to his chin. As he fumbled for his sidearm, a robed figure loomed. Cypher, the fallen angel, his identity a secret to the traitor. 2 heavy pistols hovered before the corsair's face, their threat unmistakable. Cypher's eyes glinted beneath his cowl, locking with the Corsair's defiant, yellowed gaze. With a minimal gesture of one pistol, he indicated the cells. Growling, the Corsair reached into a belt pouch, producing a rune-inscribed amulet, the key to the sorcerer's flames. Cypher nodded, then stomped down, crushing the traitor's skull in a spray of blood and bone. Holstering his bolt pistol, he plucked the amulet from the corpse's gauntlet and faced Cylindra Veilwalker, the Shadow Seer, who had guided Guilliman through the Maelstrom and summoned Cypher to this fortress. She offered a mocking bow, pointing her staff toward a distant cell. With a nod, Cypher strode forward, the amulet in hand. Through dancing flames, Guilliman watched the robed figure approach. The Primarch did not recognize this cowled space marine, but he knew the Legion, whose colours he wore. "You are Reboot Guilliman," said the mysterious space marine, stopping outside the Primarch's cell. "And you are one of the Lion's sons," replied Guilliman. "You keep questionable company, Dark Angel. Who are you, and why are you here?" "I can free you," replied the hooded figure, deigning not to answer the Primarch's questions. Realizing no further explanation was forthcoming, Guilliman frowned. "Can," he rumbled. "Not will. What do you want in return?" "You will take me to Terra," replied the Dark Angel. "To the throne." Malefic flames crackled, distant battle rumbling as Guilliman's silence stretched, his presence thunderous even in chains. The Dark Angel stood unmoved, a granite statue. Straining against his bonds, Guilliman found them unyielding. "It seems that my choices are to rot here or to accede to your demand," said the Primarch slowly. "The former would be to fail in my duty, so I suppose it will have to be the latter. But understand this, Dark Angel. If you seek to trick or manipulate me, nothing in the galaxy will save you." One corner of the stranger's mouth lifted into a small, bitter smile. "As you say," he muttered, brandishing the runic stone. The flames of Guilliman's cell died, followed by every other cell's, freeing the Ultramarines. Guilliman's eyes narrowed, recognizing the Eldar who had appeared in his vision, her cryptic guidance leading him to this fortress, whether by design or deceit, he could not yet discern. Her shimmering lights coiled, dissolving the adamantium chains binding his Ultramarines, and shattering the crystalline fetters of Keros Fateweaver's sorcery that held the Primarch. A dangerous smile crossed Guilliman's lips as he stepped free, his mind already calculating the angles of this strange alliance. Veilwalker, anticipating his questions, revealed that, conveniently, their weapons, vehicles, and allies lay in stasis vaults nearby, and she could lead them there. Guilliman, weary of the Eldar and the enigmatic Cypher, gestured for her to proceed. He would not abandon the Emperor's sword or his loyal warriors in this den of treachery. Hundreds of battle-hungry Ultramarines followed Veilwalker's Harlequins through shadowed corridors, Guilliman, Sicarius, and Cypher at their head. Speed trumped stealth. The combatants fighting above would soon notice their escape. They breached the first stasis vault, freeing St. Celestine and her Gemini superior, their radiance undimmed. The second reunited them with Archmagus Cole, his Skitarii and Dune Crawlers bolstering their ranks. With this force they overwhelmed the Red Corsairs guarding the final vault, reclaiming Voldus, his Grey Knights, Dread Knights, and the Crusade Space Marines, tanks and dreadnoughts. Amazing. Sicarius urged a swift strike to reclaim their ships, but Veilwalker's warning halted them. The human crews, guardsmen, and battle sisters were dead, sacrificed, and the navigators spirited away to Huron Blackheart's stronghold. The ships were lost, but Veilwalker offered another path, a stabilized webway portal at the fortress's heart, its arterial routes wide enough for war machines, the same path her Harlequins and Cypher had used to reach them. Convenient. The Loyalists surged toward the lower halls, but the fortress's awakening drew resistance. Red Corsairs and demons blocked their path, slowing their advance to a crawl. In a chamber of twisting bridges over black chasms, they were surrounded. As hope faltered, spectral flames erupted among the foe, auspexes flickered and ghostly voices hissed through vox networks. The Legion of the Damned, clad in black and bone, materialized, their volleys sweeping chaos forces from the bridges. With Veil Walker's Harlequins whirling at his side, Guilliman led the charge, gunfire flashing in the gloom. The chamber, vast and shadowed, spanned 100 miles, its walls crawling with bioluminescent patterns. A titanic black column rose at its heart, radiating bridges and platforms like a dark god's limbs. From countless portals poured Zenchen demons, their flames searing, and cornate packs snarling across bridges wide enough for titans. Far off, Keros Fateweaver hurled sorcery, avoiding Guilliman's wrath, while Skarbrand, blazing like a pyre, hacked through a portal, his roars infecting all with bloodlust. Skarbrand's fury drove Amorek and the Black Templars into a reckless melee with cornate demons, blood spraying as their blades clashed. Guilliman, his heart heavy, ordered his forces onward, steadying them against the demons' influence. Kol Skitari mowed down demons. Novamarine Vindicators blasted enemy-held bridges, and Greyfax and Celestine felled Zenchen heralds. Harlequins danced through the fray, their blades a blur. Skarbrand, trailing ichor from Amorek's black blade embedded in his chest, leaped across the void, landing amidst the Legion of the Damned, his axes slaughter and carnage scattering their fire-wreathed forms. As his warriors succumbed to madness, Guilliman ordered a final push to the webway portal, its esoteric shimmer visible on a distant platform. Taking position on the bridge's head, he stood firm as his forces streamed past, Sicarius and Celestine guarding the portal's entrance. Skarbrand stormed onto the platform, the structure shuddering under his weight, his eyes burning, locked with Guilliman's, igniting a surge of unreasoning fury. Hellish visions arose, leering faces of fallen brothers, threatening to drown the Primarch's reason. Skarbrand sought his skull for corn, but Guilliman, with a titanic effort, caged the demon's rage within mental steel. The bridge reappeared as Sicarius and Celestine urged him to flee. Skarbrand lunged, axes raised, but Guilliman, coolly assessing, fired the Hand of Dominion, blasting the demon back. Shells tore into Skarbrand's cranium, and a final shot shattered Amorek's blade, shredding the bloodthirster's torso. With a ferocious roar, Skarbrand toppled into the void. Guilliman sprinted across the bridge, diving into the webway as its runes sealed, barring the demonic tide at the last moment. Chapter 9. To Terra. The Terran Crusade stood amidst the shimmering mists of the webway, a realm of vast, disorientating dimensions where lights glimmered and a distant booming pulsed like a titanic heartbeat, or waves crashing on a jagged shore. Of those who escaped the Blackstone Fortress, 2/3 survived, with Valdus's Grey Knights and Veil Walker's Harlequins suffering few losses. Cypher, ever enigmatic, stood with a band of dark-armoured space marines who had awaited his return, their loyalty as shadowed as his motives. Salendra Veilwalker, the Shadowseer, who had woven this path, shared a loaded glance with Archmagus Call before addressing Guilliman. It was a tale through which the webway wound, like serpents all entwined, she said, her voice a melodic whisper. By chance or necessity, the humans thought, if they thought of it at all. We who serve the Laughing God know better. Before her cryptic meaning could be discerned, she suddenly urged haste. Her Skyweaver jetbike scouts had reported in, the blue and gold armoured intruders, 1,000 suns, reeking of Zenchen sorcery, were closing in. Guilliman's mind raced, piecing together Magnus's machinations. His brother had hurled the crusade into the maelstrom, not to destroy, but to weaken, guiding them to capture and escape into this webway trap. Aided by Araman's stolen knowledge, Magnus aimed for the Emperor's palace on Terra, its wards potentially lowered by Guilliman's arrival. Voldus, drawing on Titan's lore, confirmed the gate's existence, sealed by potent adjurations. Guilliman realised Magnus sought to follow them through, striking at the Golden Throne directly. Despair flickered. Emerging at Terra would invite catastrophe. Veilwalker, however, revealed a hidden path. A warded webway spar to Luna, Terra's moon, veiled from even the greatest psychers. With their goals set, the crusade surged forward, undaunted by the trials endured. Their resolve to deliver Guilliman to Terra unbroken. Guided by the veiled paths Harlequins, who moved with increasing confidence through their domain, the Loyalists traversed misty passageways, crystalline expanses and fleshy, pulsing tunnels. Harlequins darted through side passages, their jet bikes streaking overhead in polychromatic blurs, guarding against the webway's predators. But Veilwalker reported that the Thousand Suns were gaining on them, and the Crusade's pace quickened. In a crystal-studded cavern, sorcery-laced bolts erupted from the mists, felling 15 warriors. Rhinos exploded under leaping spells, and Skitarii mutated into howling flesh. Guilliman's orders rallied the Loyalists, who fanned out, firing from crystal cover. Thousand Suns Rubricae advanced, their ensorcelled bolts blazing, joined by shrieking Zangors, wielding silvered blades. Cypher danced through the chaos, his pistols reaping foes, while Voldus's hammer crushed Rubricae into glittering dust. More Rubricae closed in, their sorceress masters hurling spells from flying discs. Guilliman, loathing retreat, knew staying meant death, with Luna within reach. Raising his blade, he led a breakout, St. Celestine's radiance carving a path. Losses mounted, precious gene seed lost forever as Space Marines fell. But the Loyalists smashed through ambushes. Guilliman, Voldus, Greyfax, Celestine and Cypher at the fore. Rubricae and Zangors blocked junctions, but the Crusade's momentum was relentless. At last, they reached a rune-sealed portal. Fixing helms and rebreathers, they stepped through, led by Veilwalker, onto Luna's surface, the laughing god's serpentine tail guiding them to salvation. Rabute Guilliman stepped through the webway gate's shimmering veil, the disorientating doubling of reality giving way to Luna's harsh black shadows and searing solar glare. The gentle warmth of the webway vanished, replaced by the frozen airless void. Gravity faded, and with a single stride, the Primarch launched into a billowing moon dust, emerging in a deep crater shrouded in inky blackness, pierced by shafts of Sol's light from above. His crusade, Space Marines, Grey Knights, Skitarii and War Machines followed, climbing the crater's sides with urgency, aware of the Thousand Suns trailing close behind. Space Marines bounded upward in low gravity, Chanks churned dust into drifting fans, and Skitarii marched, their organic components blackening in the vacuum, enduring to serve the Omnissiah. St. Celestine soared in the dark skies, her Gemini superior helmed, while she needed no such protection, her radiance defiant. Selendra Veilwalker and her Harlequins lingered by the gate, the Shadowseer levelling her staff, her whispered chant igniting runes with searing light to seal the portal. But before she could finish, dark energies pulsed, blue fire erupting in a dull roar. Veilwalker spun clear, but many Harlequins were consumed, their Dithydi suits melting or freezing as their bodies perished. From the crater's lip, Guilliman saw the corrupted gate glow with dark fire, its energies blasting Eldar corpses to ash. Rubricae Marines emerged, their muffled footfalls advancing as they fired ensorcelled bolts. Armour ruptured, souls burned. Nova Marines and Mortifactors tumbled down the slopes, dust cascading. And a Dreadnought fell, its pilot slain. The Loyalists crested the crater, escaping the line of fire, and halted on Luna's surface in the Mare Tempestus, surrounded by rusted hulks of decommissioned Imperial ships. Orbital docks and defence platforms loomed overhead, dwarfed by Terra's stark silhouette against the starry void. The Crusade's goal tantalisingly close. Yet the Thousand Suns
pursued, their warp sorcery a threat to the throne world. Guilliman, haunted by Keros's vision of a shattered terror, knew the gate's eruption had triggered every alarm within a dozen terror souls. Imperial forces would soon arrive, but Magnus could wreak havoc first. The Primarch resolved to hold the crater, bottling the enemy until aid came. As Eldrad Ulthran, High Farseer of Ulthwe, had said, "The history of the galaxy is a tapestry woven from terror and blood. Yet amongst the countless threads of darkness there gleam thin strands of light, moments of selfless heroism and bravery that shine out all the brighter for the shadow that surrounds them. Through such desperate deeds is the future wrought. Through such desperate deeds does hope endure." Guilliman's stand was such a deed, a beacon against the tide of chaos. He deployed his forces, Space Marines, Skitarii, Dreadnoughts, Land Raiders, Vindicators, Dune Crawlers, around the crater's lip, using the high ground to pour fire into the advancing Rubricae and Scarab occult, driven by sorcerers on flying discs. Lascannon blasts and demolisher shells shattered automata, glittering dust spilling in the low gravity as armour crumbled. Cypher and his shadowed allies rained precise shots. Greyfax drove silver stakes through Rubricae, and Voldus' psychic might tore traitors apart. Harlequins from rocky outcrops sliced through foes with monofilament discs. The enemy losses mounted, their advance faltering. Then, a vortex of dark power swirled through the gate, and a horned figure emerged, wings spreading. Magnus the Red, his evil smile fixed on Guilliman, stepped onto Luna, dread washing over the Loyalists as the Crimson King's trap closed. Magnus the Red rose to his full height, his ensorcelled glaive gleaming as he intoned dolorous words that defied the void's silence. Purple flames erupted, weaving shimmering shields around his thousand suns, rendering them impervious to the Loyalists' fire. Rubricae and Scarab occult strode unharmed up the crater's slopes, their bolts tearing through Guilliman's forces, sending blood and shattered bones spraying as dozens tumbled from the lip. Guilliman, recognizing the tide's shift, ordered a retreat to the rusted hulks of Luna's ship graveyard. His warriors had taken cover amidst craters and wreckage while tanks backed away, guns thundering. Magnus emerged from the crater, his sorcery unmaking free dreadknights, their wards burned out and armour crushed. With a gesture, he hurled a Land Raider through ranks of Skitarii, and with a staff's flourish, tore reality asunder, unleashing cackling demons into the fray. Guilliman, seeing his army's doom and Magnus's unchecked power, charged headlong, his war cry echoing as he smashed through Rubricae. His flaming sword trailed fire, aimed at the Crimson King, who began an incantation of pain. Guilliman struck first, his blade parried by Magnus's glaive, but the Primarch's momentum drove them both backward, crashing into a rusted Imperial frigate. Wreckage collapsed around them, burying the brothers in a cascade of metal. Guilliman fought free, hurling aside a slab of debris, his armour venting air, alarms screaming. Were it not for his godlike resilience and Call's technology, he would have perished. "Magnus!" he shouted through his vox. "I know better than to think you dead. Face me!" Deep laughter rolled, steeped in ancient evil, as Magnus's ethereal form rose, solidifying into a menacing giant. "Very well, Rubute," he laughed, crystalline showers raining down. "Here I am, in the flesh, and somehow, there you are. I don't remember you seeming so insignificant." 10 millennia have made you no less arrogant then, Guilliman retorted, circling wearily, disgust twisting his features at Magnus's monstrous form. "Certainly those years have done you no other kindness." Magnus sighed, empiric energies swirling around his glaive. "How can you have such grand plans and yet such scant vision has always eluded me. This is what true power looks like." Guilliman shook his head. "I see no power here."
I see corruption and enslavement to monsters worshipped as gods.
Magnus glanced at the loyalists, sneering.
On that, Rabute, perhaps we can finally agree.
Noticing Guilliman's skyward glance, he mocked.
Hoping to keep my sons and I occupied until the remnants of this palsied Imperium come to save you. I may not reach our father's throne room today, but I promise you won't either. You will be dead long before help arrives.
Magnus attacked, his glaive flashing faster than Guilliman anticipated, sparking against his armour as the Primarch leapt back, landing atop a frigate's crumpled prow. Blue flames pursued him, forcing Guilliman to slide down the rusted flank, charging through the dust to evade sorcery. His hand of Dominion's ammunition spent, he slid inside Magnus's guard, delivering a thunderous uppercut that lifted the demon Primarch into the void, fiery blood spraying to sprout kaleidoscopic fungi on Luna's surface. Magnus, howling, righted himself with roiling energy, his single eye glaring with madness.
Arrogance, Guilliman shouted. It was always your undoing, brother. You thought this would be an easy fight, that the gifts of your so-called gods would render me impotent. Perhaps those you serve are not all you believe them to be.
Magnus's rage vanished, replaced with scornful laughter.
You would like to believe that, wouldn't you? That the dutiful Rabute Guilliman was justified in his loyalty. That now the ramifications of our choices have become clear, you can look down on me as you always did.
Magnus jabbed his glaive, multicoloured flames engulfing Guilliman and the bedrock. Moondust exploded, corpescent dancing across scrap as Guilliman screamed, his armour blazing, flesh searing. He leapt back, crashing into engineering debris, his servo motors faltering. Magnus landed, chuckling cruelly.
No, brother, he said. You stay where you are.
Spectral claws tore hundreds of tons of wreckage free, burying Guilliman beneath a crushing avalanche. Alarms blared, pain from shattered bones and lacerated organs threatening to overwhelm him. For a moment, surrender tempted him. But the thought of his son's sacrifices and his duty to the Imperium steeled his resolve. Roaring, Guilliman tore through the debris, hurling aside a capacitor unit the size of a Land Raider, stepping, bloodied but unbroken, into Luna's light. Magnus arced an eyebrow, bracing his glaive. But as he prepared another spell, the void erupted in fire, heralding the arrival of Imperial reinforcements. Grandmaster Voldus raised his eyes to the heavens, giving thanks to the Emperor, as deliverance descended upon Luna's scarred surface. The Terran Crusade's remnants clung to scattered strongholds amidst spacecraft wreckage and jutting rocks, encircled by 1,000 suns, pouring ensorcelled bolts and warp flame from Zentian demons on golden discs. Guilt-chased fighters screamed overhead, their Lars blasts and explosive shells tearing rubricae and horrors apart. Bombs sundered armour and flesh, while Terran Defence Fleet monitors loomed, their adamantium hulls casting shadows as Archmage's calls targeting data guided their pinpoint barrages. Teleport energies swirled, and Adeptus Custodes materialized, their guardian spears cleaving through heretic Astartes with heroic precision. Cloven helms spinning across the moonscape. The Crusade rallied, Voldus leading his Grey Knights and Dread Knights in a thunderous charge, his hammer shattering ceramite, psychic lightning defying sorcerous blasts. Katarina Greyfax felled Zentian conjurers with her iron will and masterwork blade, while St. Celestine carved through enemies, her ardent blade flashing, her Gemini superior banishing demons with blessed bolts. Captain Sicarius rallied the Astartes and moved towards the custodians. Imperial Fist drop pods slammed down, their yellow-armoured squads joining Storm Ravens and Storm Talons.
though sorcery and cannon fire claimed several, their wrecks crashing amid the ship graveyard. 3 crimson and black Valkyries, bearing the Adepta Astra Telepathica's sigil, arced toward Guilliman's duel with Magnus. Purple fire ripped one apart, but the others dropped Sisters of Silence near the Primarch, their null presence snuffing Magnus's sorcery out. Guilliman joined them, their blades raised against the Crimson King, who charged with his glaive, intent on crushing them in close combat. Amidst this chaos, Cylindra Veilwalker bounded into the fray, her foot tearing a Rubrique's helm free. Spinning, she hurled a glamour into a sorcerer's face, his panic screams ending as his flesh froze, gore bursting from his orifices. "The moment has arrived," she told her death jester, the Hollow Prince, via her helm's inlay. "Our drama is played out, and the brothers' enmity burns anew." His wicked mirth replied, "Now the final curtain, then. Indignation, outrage, vendetta." "It must be thus," Veilwalker agreed. "I shall ready the gate, for truth this time. You deliver your lines and let matters play out." Cutting the link, she sprinted for the crater, weaving through the battle, sliding over its lip to land among armoured corpses. The corrupted webway gate blazed with purple light, Magnus's curse upon it. Smirking, Veilwalker ghosted toward 2 guarding sorcerers, her shuriken pistol felling them with precise shots to the gorgets. Her incantations began, the gate's runes glowing as a keening vibration shook the pit. Guilliman and Magnus appeared at the crater's edge, bloodied, flanked by a dwindling handful of sisters. Magnus bisected another with his glaive, hacking a chunk from Guilliman's breastplate. The Lord of Ultramar drove him back with punishing blows, slamming his shoulder into Magnus's chest, sending him crashing down the slope. Guilliman leaped after, his onslaught relentless. Veilwalker, hidden in shadows, continued her chant, staff weaving. Magnus hurled a sphere of warp energy. Guilliman's iron halo absorbed the brunt, but the blast staggered him. Magnus flung a telekinetic wave of corpses, burying the remaining sisters, their null aura vanishing. Fearing the plan's collapse, Veilwalker started forward, but Guilliman roared again, lunging with the Emperor's blade. It sank into Magnus's chest, golden flames devouring his flesh. Magnus's uncontrolled sorcery erupted, hurling Guilliman back and throwing Veilwalker from her feet. As Magnus staggered through the gate, Veilwalker shattered her runestone, severing the portal. Magnus's roar was cut off, banished to the labyrinth dimension, leaving Guilliman victorious amidst Luna's dust. Chapter 10. The Golden Throne. Battle is not over when your enemy is beaten. He must be crushed utterly, and every trace of his works and deeds expunged. His spirit and that of his people must be broken beyond repair. Only when your enemy has been eradicated altogether and burned from the pages of history is the war at its end. Rebute Guilliman, the Codex Astartes. Rising from the moon dust, battered and bleeding beneath his scorched armour, Rebute Guilliman faced the silent webway gate, its corrupted energies extinguished. Magnus the Red was gone, banished to the labyrinth dimension. But Guilliman doubted his destruction. The Harlequin's sudden plan seemed too neat, their victory too swift. Veilwalker and her Harlequins had vanished, their departure a mystery. If this was a trick, its purpose was opaque, but the absence of Magnus left the Thousand Suns vulnerable. Guilliman's mind, ever strategic, pieced together the battle's flow from Vox reports, even as he had fought his brother. The Adeptus Custodes and Imperial Fists had turned the tide, scattering Zentian automata across the Mara Tempestus, their ornate shells broken amidst rusted hulks. The demons Magnus summoned had faded with him, leaving only the sorcerers and their Rubricae, now driving for the crater's edge, unaware the gate was severed.
Limping but unbowed, Guilliman marched to intercept, his Auspex tracking the traitors' advance as Loyalists harried their flanks. The Thousand Sons' losses mounted, yet they pressed on, their formation battered but resolute. From a mound of corpses behind him, 3 Sisters of Silence clawed their way free, their null presence joining the Primarch. The enemy marched in a tight ring, rubricae in lockstep, sorcerers shielded within, their bolts felling Loyalists despite counterfire from tanks and infantry. Guilliman voxed a final order, a full assault, vehicles providing covering fire. Brandishing his flaming blade, he swept into the battle, the Sisters running beside him, their bolters roaring. The Imperials converged like a hammer, gunfire thundering across the moonscape, shredding the Thousand Sons' ranks. Voldus's hammer crushed Ceramite. Cypher's pistols cut down foes. Greyfax's blade severed sorcerers' heads. Cole Skitari unleashed barrage after barrage, and Celestine's ardent blade blazed through automata. Loyalists fell to curse spells, some crystallizing, others mutating. But Guilliman carved toward the sorcerer's core. No more would his son's blood stain this moon. The Crusade's losses ended here. He felled the first sorcerer with a crushing fist, sending him spinning away. 2 more died to precise sword strikes, their blood misting in the void. 3 others unleashed hexes, only for the Sisters' aura to snuff them out. 1 sorcerer's blade pierced Guilliman's pauldron, drawing blood. Another cracked his helm's lenses. Undeterred, the Primarch's wrath was unstoppable, leaving them all as drifting husks. The last rubricae, bereft of guidance, crumbled under the Loyalists' onslaught. As the dust settled, Guilliman's warriors knelt amid the wreckage, their foes obliterated. Holy terror gleaming above. The dust of Luna's battle settled. Terror's machinery stirred into life. Craft descended, with inquisitorial agents to enforce secrecy and mega xenotechnologists to dissect the severed webway gate. Guilliman, his wounds hastily tended to by an Imperial Fist's apothecary, dismissed the clamour, demanding passage to Terra and the palace. Awestruck custodes and others dared not refuse a living Primarch, their gazes fixed on him in wonder. A golden lander, shaped like the Imperial Aquila, descended, with flames roaring from its wings, landing on talon struts beyond the battlefield. Custodes strode from its ramp, joining their scarred brethren to line the path ahead. Guilliman, his Space Marines, Grey Knights, and Celestinian Crusade leaders marched through, heads high, into the craft's vast hold. The ramp sealed. Oxygen flooded the hold, and the Custodes bared their faces, bowing to the Primarch. Shield Captain Ty Andronitus announced their course, a swift journey to Terra's Eternity Wall spaceport, followed by a triumphal parade to the Emperor's palace, where the High Lords awaited the honour of Guilliman's return. Exhausted from the Crusade's trials since Macragge, Guilliman and his warriors settled into flight thrones, gazing at external pictures. Luna's industrial sprawl, shipyards, forges, and junk-laden macro hives unfolded below, while the void teemed with minefields of steel skulls, gun-studded battle stations, and Ministorum penitence arcs, their faithful wailing within. Phalanx, the Imperial Fist starfort, hung in repair cradles, guarding Terra still. Mars's red glow and drifting warship wrecks, scavenged by Mechanicus dredgers, hinted at recent strife, unsettling Guilliman. Terra swelled into view, a bloated world of endless cityscapes, its oceans long gone, its surface aglow with countless lights and towering macro-structures piercing the smog. Their craft, granted priority, descended through a storm of servo-skulls, gunships, and administratum transports, landing on a marble dais at the Eternity Wall spaceport, surrounded by weaponized, incense-wreathed statues. Robed dignitaries, Ministorum priests, and ostentatious nobles thronged the platform, forming the Aquila and shouting devotion. Guilliman offered a strained smile, his mind reeling at Terra's transformation from industrious glory to a grotesque labyrinth of Gothic sprawl and religious fervour. Descending maglifts, they passed cavernous administratum offices. Their petitioners, bound to ancestral queues, wept at his sight. Emerging into a plaza thronged with downtrodden masses, Guilliman faced mile-high stained-glass depictions of his brothers, sanguineous atop mutant corpses, the Khan on a skull-faced comet, Vulcan forging on a planetary anvil, and himself, haloed, clutching the Codex Astartes and a demon's head. Memories of Fulgrim's wounds at Macragg's parade stirred unease, warning against the worship he now faced. He resolved to reject such idolatry. In ornate super-heavy transporters, the crusade traversed endless streets, passing petitioner tribes, priest clans, and shanties of the destitute. Billions watched as the imperial palace's mountainous silhouette grew, its Astronomicon a piercing beacon. For 2 days they journeyed through grandeur and horror, arch cities with pain frames, saint statues rivaling imperator titans, a 50-mile bridge over smoke-choked manufactorums, and colossal orbital defense silos. Entering the palace through a gate carved with warring angels and demons, Guilliman welcomed the chance to walk, the inner precinct's splendour overwhelming, blurring into sensory chaos. Exhausted beyond any battle's toll, he reached the final gate, beyond which lay the Emperor's throne room and the Golden Throne, the heart of his father's realm. Rabute Guilliman strode through the towering cathedral processional, its worn flagstones packed with millions of pilgrims and petitioners, their trembling hands brushing his scorched armour. Golden light poured through immense stained-glass windows, chronicling the Emperor's triumphs, mingling with greasy smoke from countless candles. Cyber cherubim sang hymnals, incense clouded the air, and ministorum priests thundered sermons from servo pulpits. Tech priests muttered in shadowed alcoves, while Navy and Astra Militarum officers debated over data slates held by robed menials. Penitent nobles whimpered in golden pain cages, pleading with patrolling custodian guards. The doorway, a 50-foot masterpiece of faded gold, bronze, and precious stones, stood within a black marble arch, atop grooved steps littered with petitioners' bones. 20 custodies, led by a regal warrior in a high-plumed helm, golden armour, and ermine-trimmed cloak, stood guard beside a Martian priest. At Guilliman's side marched Captain Sicarius, Grand Master Voldus, Shield Captain Andronitus, the enigmatic Cypher with his battle brothers, Archmagus Belisarius Cor, Inquisitor Katarina Greyfax, and Saint Celestine, whose radiance rivaled the Primarch's, drawing worshipful cries as she paused to bless the crowd. The Terran Crusade surviving Space Marines and Grey Knights followed, their footfalls crashing, weapons at parade readiness, a defiant spectacle despite their trials. Halting at the steps, Guilliman met the custodian's unyielding gaze. Their leader rapped his ornate spear thrice, declaring, "Who comes before the throne room of the Emperor of Mankind?" Shield Captain Andronitus, who had led the Crusaders since meeting them on Luna, replied in formal High Gothic, naming each leader in turn. Ancient rites followed, their gravitas heightened by the Primarch's presence. Guilliman stated his purpose: to gain an audience with my father, the Emperor. The crowd held its breath as Aquila Commander Kalim Varanor scrutinized him, probing for treachery. The Martian priest nodded, and Varanor pronounced, "The Primarch will be permitted to pass alone into the throne room
All others will wait outside.
Cypher tensed, hands drifting to his pistols, his intent flickering toward defiance. Guilliman, prepared, recognized the dread blade on the Dark Angel's back, its presence chilling him. He would not risk it near the Emperor. Stepping aside, he ordered,
"Custodian guards, apprehend Cypher and his warriors."
Their aid in his escape from the Blackstone Fortress was honoured, but they demanded better scrutiny. Cypher snarled, drawing his pistols but pausing, torn between fight or flight. In that moment, the Custodes surrounded him and his brothers with crackling spears, dispelling any hope of a futile rush for the door. Grimly, Cypher holstered his weapons, and they knelt in submission. Bound in electro cuffs, they were led to a warded prison block, unbreached for millennia, though Cypher would escape within hours, leaving no trace. Guilliman, helm under arm, blade sheathed, ascended the stairs to the gate. The Custodes parted before him, but the tech priest emitted a binaric blurt, bowing low. Call followed, exchanging cryptic cant with the priest, speaking of secret pacts on Mars and long works drawing at last to the conclusion. The Custodes, as always, feigned ignorance of such secrets. Call and his acolyte departed for Mars, their urgent tasks unspoken. Alone before the towering doorway, Guilliman stood dwarfed by its grandeur as a booming chime echoed. The doors cracked open, revealing darkness and twinning mists that coiled like serpents, spilling down the steps with ghostly whispers. His noble features set, Guilliman took a deep breath and stepped into the Emperor's throne room. The doors closed silently, concealing him. Hours passed. The Crusades' warriors standing vigil at the steps. The crowd's murmurs turned to fervent prayers, some offering meagre tokens and thanks to Sicarius and Voldus. Saint Celestine departed to spread her blessings. Greyfax to report to her Ordo Hereticus superiors. With no natural day or night, the palace's electro-sconces were dimmed under lamp servitors' wands. Pilgrims huddled around parchment fires, eating nutrient gruel from ministorum servitors, sleeping on threadbare surplices, while the Ultramarines kept a tireless watch. At the day cycle's dawn, hymns soaring and lumen lights swelling, the doors opened. Silver mist, cold as moonlight on bones, poured forth, and Guilliman emerged, his expression unreadable. Descending, he gathered his warriors and summoned Varanor, demanding, "I require an immediate assembly of the High Lords of Terror. I intend to resume my seat upon that council." As Lord Commander of the Imperium once more, he spoke sparingly of his audience. "I have received all the enlightenment that I required." In the days that followed, Guilliman became a maelstrom of action, addressing the High Lords with the Emperor's mandate, ousting several and installing his chosen successors. He warned of a growing darkness, a warp phenomenon, the Great Rift, engulfing the galaxy. Astropathic distress calls flooded into Terra, reporting Chaos's claws from Fenris to Armageddon, Attila to Baelor. Warp rifts multiplied, witchlights danced, and monstrous entities stirred. Sectors went dark, beset by greenskins, Tau, Necrons, and heretic cults, as worlds burned in galactic war. Yet Guilliman urged hope, proclaiming the Emperor's vigilance and his own resolve. From Quall's Martian forges, new weapons and armies would rise, fleets and war engines consecrated in the Emperor's name. Manufactorums would labour ceaselessly, every servant mobilised for total war. Guilliman vowed, "I will not cower behind Terra's walls and wait for mankind's oppressors to bring death to my door." He would meet the enemy among the stars, uniting the Imperium against annihilation. As warp storms raged and the Astronomicon struggled, vast armies and armadas rose, unseen since the Great Crusade. A dark age dawned, but Guilliman's Imperium would answer with fire and defiance. The era, Indomitus,
had begun. Thank you for watching, everybody. I still cannot get over the whole Primarch capture. Like, that didn't need to be part of the story, right? Like, I just think that's really bizarre and wrong on multiple levels. But this is the end of the old 40k into the new era Indomitus. And if you'd like to know more about the genuinely really excellent stuff from Guy Haley, the Dark Imperium novel, which was the first novel set in this period, and it has Guilliman actually meet the instance of him actually meeting the Emperor. Highly recommend it. Don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. So yeah, I thought about including that in this and doing that sort of thing, but I thought I'd stick with, you know, the sort of narrative of the Crusade as a history, because that's more of like a, you know, it's like his take on what happened to him and meeting the Emperor again. I don't know, it's a whole thing. Definitely recommend. Thank you to everybody watching. Thank you to everybody who's been sticking with the channel and supporting the channel and watching the vids as we go through this slightly difficult rebuilding process on my archives after my issues. Eventually, I'm hoping that like most of the videos will come back. In the meantime, if you are looking for the old stuff, please do head over to any of your podcast platforms and search for A Border Prince. You'll find the whole archive there. There's a couple of video. Basically, I'm everywhere. I've got stuff everywhere, okay? Not quite complete everywhere, but like the podcast feed is pretty much complete, I think. Aside from these most recent videos, I've got to upload them. But yeah. Thank you, everybody who's been watching. Thank you for all the very kind messages. Thank you for all the memberships and super chats and everything like that. Honestly, really appreciating it in this trying time. But we are almost back to where we were. We're getting there. We're rebuilding slowly, but we're getting there. And yeah, so if you wouldn't mind giving this video a like and let me know in the comments what you thought. I really appreciate that. Apologies about the awful AI art, but I have to put something there, so it should be at least something themey. Okay, yeah, so that's what we've got to do going forward. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are, and I've come to terms with it. You should too. But yeah, really appreciate your continued support, and I hope you've enjoyed this remake, this reimagining of this series, and I'll probably pull this all together into a compilation at some point in the not too distant future, so you can watch it all at once. But yeah, it's been fun to go through this again, and it's been good to write stuff and yeah, get back into the swing of things. Yeah. That's all I got to say. Thank you all for watching again, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, really appreciate it. Honestly, it's really nice that so many people still enjoy the stuff and have stuck with the channel. And like I say, yeah, it's very heartwarming, and I appreciate it. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed so you keep up with any new stuff I bring out. And yeah, I'm trying to live stream a bit more regularly, so come along if you want to ask any questions and stuff. Pop into a live stream. Happy to answer your questions, I guess, within reason. All right, I'm going to go now. I'm just ranting again. More stuff coming soon. Got big plans. Lots of the old stuff coming back. New stuff. Everything coming, you know, loads of stuff is on its way. So yeah, don't worry. As we go into the winter now, you're going to have lots of entertainment from my stuff. And yeah, just let me know how things... yeah, just let me know. Let me know what you thought. I'll be back soon. Thank you all again. Bye-bye. Ta-ra. May the Emperor protect.